And we're live. What's up, everybody? Good to see you all. It's been a while. I'm back. And I know I keep saying I'm back and I'm going to be more consistent, and then I'm not consistent. And there's many reasons for my lack of consistency. I don't feel like getting into all of it now, but I actually just want to acknowledge that I haven't kept my word, because I said like 2 months ago I'm back and then I disappeared. So I'm not going to commit to doing more live streams only to disappoint or not keep my word. But I'm going to make an effort to do more live streams without committing to doing so. Anyways, it's great to be back. Hope you're all doing well. Let me know where in the world you're tuning in from. So today we're going to talk about Israel-Palestine stuff, Iran-US war, and wherever else the conversation flows. This will be a community discussion, so those here on Discord, feel free to raise your hand. We'll bring you on. Those viewing, if you want to join, you could find a link to the Discord in the description of this video. So join the Discord, and then you can join the conversation. So where do we want to start? What's going on with Iran? It's either over or just getting started. And I know there's nothing super insightful about that, but it seems like Trump kind of has his back up against the wall. I imagine that he thought this would be much easier. I think he was maybe convinced that regime change was possible. And I get the sense he regrets this, because he did not want his second term to just be a term of war. He wants to focus on domestic issues while getting some good foreign policy wins. And now he's stuck in a foreign policy quagmire that he doesn't quite know how to get out of. Iran's not close to being defeated. They're not close to surrendering, at least as far as we can tell. There's almost no defections. So we're not seeing a popular uprising or defections from within. And they're very tough negotiators, which we've known this historically, but Trump's not even able to get the same terms of the deal that they offered pre-war, right? And as far as Iran's concerned, they're saying, you attacked us mid-negotiation. We're not going back to pre-war terms. The terms have changed. So Trump is now in a situation where he needs to accept these bad terms and somehow sell it to the public that he won. And his base will eat it up, right? Like whoever's still MAGA today will believe whatever he says. They'll believe he won. There's also I don't want to be an asshole, but the more simple-minded folks, they're in this narrative that the U.S. won, and they're saying we destroyed their Navy, their Air Force. Guys, that's not how you determine a winning a war. If that was the case, then an imperial force could never lose, because obviously the imperial force is always going to be more powerful than who they're fighting. It's not about, you don't win by inflicting more damage. That's not how it's determined. You win by achieving your political goals. And destroying their Navy and Air Force was obvious. Nobody questioned whether the U.S. can inflict that damage on them. The question was, can they get them to make concessions on their nuclear program, or can they achieve regime change? Neither of which were achieved. And Iran is now, in a sense, more powerful because they control the Strait of Hormuz, and they're not planning on opening it back up, not without them doing a toll, right, and making money, which I think they see as a form of reparations for the damage U.S. and Israel inflicted on them. So the U.S. did not achieve their war aims. There's no way you could frame that as a win. Iran's war aims was to survive and to maybe come out of this somehow with stronger. Now, they're not stronger militarily, but they're a more dominant player in the region now. People understand their strength and their force and their resilience. So by most metrics, Iran won. And to deny that is really just cope, right? You don't measure who won by who killed more. And certainly not when it's an imperial force against a much weaker nation. If that was the case, again, imperial force can't lose because it could always inflict more damage. That's not how it's determined. So again, Trump either needs to take a deal and sell the public a win, or the war continues, right? And I have no idea. Like, sometimes I feel like I have a good understanding of what the future holds, but it's hard for me to assess this. If I were to have to guess, I would lean towards him trying to sell a win to the public and not reopening the war, though I would put that odds at like 54%, right? So it's not like I'm really that sure. Let's see. We have some comments coming in. Wait, hold on. Where'd my screen go? Okay. Lewis is saying Iran made serious mistake by accepting from China the ceasefire that the U.S. requested through Pakistan. Now the U.S. has all its forces in order and ready for second phase. I insist the current status quo is not sustainable for Iran or the U.S. Yeah, I've seen people say they shouldn't have accepted the ceasefire, but I think they also wanted an opportunity to regroup, to reassess. They have bunkers that they need to dig out, missile silos that they need to rebuild. Like they benefit from a ceasefire as well. And I also think that they hoped it would give an opportunity for some longer term peace. But yeah, I've seen people assess that it was a strategic mistake, without a doubt. Okay. Let's see. Levy saying it was really dumb for Khomeini to stay in his residence. Yeah, he was kind of under the mindset, if they kill me, they kill me, and they killed him. But yeah, I hear that. Hold on, it's getting dark. Let's add some light to the mix. Ooh, there we go. It's a little too bright, huh? Regarding Israel-Palestine, Israel-Lebanon. So one of the most unfortunate parts of the war with Iran is that it's taken a lot of the focus off of Gaza, where there's still a horrific humanitarian crisis. There's still not sufficient aid coming in. You have malnutrition. There still are airstrikes. People are being killed. And it's hard for the world to focus on this while there's a greater regional conflict going on. Lebanon is an interesting situation. Israel's pretty deep in Lebanon. The U.S. is forcing them to adhere to a ceasefire, but it's not a real ceasefire. I live a 15-minute drive from the Lebanese border. I hear the artillery. It's been going on all day. And they're also responding. They're not really responding with much rocket fire into Israel the past few days, but it's definitely not a real ceasefire. But it's not full-blown action. And I think, I want the pro-Palestine camp to update their mental model, because we have a lot of the same. Like, I find myself in the pro-Palestine camp in many regards, but I think there's major issues with how they make sense of the world. And this isn't only an issue in the pro-Palestine camp, but the whole narrative was Trump waged war because Israel has blackmail of him raping children and he's controlled by Netanyahu. And it's like, okay, I get it. It's like it's a cool story. It sounds compelling, but that's not it. Okay. Israel has always had some influence over the US, whether it's through lobbying, whether it's just through persuasiveness, whether it's through aligned geopolitical interests. But at the end of the day, the US has always had significantly more leverage over Israel than vice versa. And real analysts, not just activists, real analysts have known this. This isn't, what I'm saying isn't controversial. It's been known for decades. The US has far more leverage over Israel than vice versa. And we saw this very clearly. The Israeli public was very mad at the ceasefire in Lebanon. Netanyahu was telling them that Hezbollah is about to be defeated. Trump forced Netanyahu to do it. He also forced the ceasefire in Gaza. At the end of the day, what the US president says is what the Israeli prime minister will do in most instances. Now, I do think Netanyahu did contribute to convincing Trump to attack Iran. I think Israel was involved in that for sure. He's persuasive. I think Israel was part of selling the regime change is likely narrative. So Israel was involved in that. But this idea that just they have blackmail on Trump, so whatever they say he does, it's like, guys, that's not it. That's not it. And what's unfortunate is, like, even with all this new media, which is good because it's challenging legacy media, the new media is not doing a good job with presenting coherent and accurate models for the world, right? They're just letting these oversimplistic conspiracy narratives run wild. And Iran definitely played into it, right? They're pushing the whole Epstein coalition thing, which is very smart of them to do, right? For Iran, they don't care what Americans or what the international community, how accurate they understand the situation. They see that the Epstein narrative is popular, so they're playing into it, right? But I don't think they actually genuinely believe it. I mean, even Iran, they consider the US to be the big devil and Israel to be the little devil. They've always understood the US to be a far more powerful actor and a greater threat to them. But now, because the narrative is Israel is controlling the US, they're playing into that. Anyways, let's see. Anyone want to hop on? We'll open it up. Let's see. Ahmed saying Trump told them to stop bombing. They haven't stopped. Yeah, but they significantly decreased their operations. It was full-blown battle. They were taking towns. And I'm able to understand the level of the force because I hear it. I'm 15 minutes away from Lebanon right now, and every time artillery shot, every airstrike, I can hear. So there's a few, but before the ceasefire, it was every hour, multiple times an hour, boom, 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 them responding with rockets, right? We had multiple sirens a day. We're at like maybe 10% of that. So yeah, there's a little bit. But yeah, Trump forced Netanyahu's hand. Levy's saying, will you react to the latest Jubilee video with Rudy? Yeah, actually, Adam suggested I do that. I'm happy to do it. I'm just worried that I don't want to take it easy on him because he's my friend. But like my conflict is, if I watch it, I'm going to be brutally honest, and he probably isn't going to like that. And I don't want to be in a position where I feel like I need to soften it too much. But yeah, I think I will do a review. Let's see when, likely. Maybe this weekend, Saturday. Oh, no. Actually, Levy, because you brought it up and you're religious, that would be disrespectful. We'll do it on Sunday or Monday, okay? I got you, bro. I ain't your Shabbos goy. Although, if you need me to turn on a light for you, I got you. Levy, I hope was that joke in good taste? We cool? Like I know you're not like super sensitive, but treading dangerous territory. So just want to make sure I didn't cross the boundary or something. Okay, cool, all good. Let's see what else we got. So Gerard saying, what's the public opinion there regarding Lebanon and Iran? Yeah, so I mean, Israelis want it to continue. Now, part of the reasons why Israelis continue to support just endless war, right, is because the Israeli public is convinced that it's essential, right? It's at this point, it's so deep-rooted. In the 90s, early 2000s, you had a significant portion of the population believing that peace was possible. You had prime ministers running on a mandate of peace. That's no longer the case. The Israelis have lost hope. They've been radicalized by failed peace agreements, and then leaderships who have been taking understandable fear, but using that to just further scare the public, indoctrinate them, and make them believe that we need to fight for eternity, or not for eternity, but these wars are essential for our safety. So most Israelis, they want it, they want it to end, but they want it to end once Hezbollah is no more, once once Iran collapses, right? And they believe that's possible because the government is telling them, yeah, we're about to defeat Hezbollah, the same way they were telling them that Hamas is almost defeated, right? So our politicians, our leadership is selling to the public that we're about to win, that we're about to completely change the region, and that we won't have these threats. We just need to keep fighting. So why wouldn't you support that, right? If you've been convinced that negotiations don't work, which you shouldn't be convinced of that, because if you actually look historically, Israel's never defeated a terror organization through military force. Our most success with a terror organization was the PLO, who is now essentially a proxy of Israel and has security cooperation and economic cooperation. That was through negotiation, not through force. We've defeated other militaries through force, but never a terror organization. But we don't learn from our mistakes, and we're still convinced that continual force is what will change, like solve this all. But I will tell you, I speak to Israelis all the time, and as extreme as they are, when I talk to them, they're extreme simply because of the information they have and that they've dealt with terror and trauma. But when they get access to other information, they're actually pretty receptive. So when I tell Israelis, we've never defeated a terror organization with force, and then I give them the PLO as an example and how they are a partner of ours now, you could tell that they don't really know what to say, but they're receptive. They hear it. Or for example, the other day I was talking to a friend of mine, and it's interesting because October 7th was horrific, and it's often brought up as this unimaginable horror that Hamas is just in a category of their own with the horrors they've done. And then I started bringing up to Israel. I said, what did Hamas do on October 7th that we didn't do in 1948? And then they're kind of taken back. They're like, what do you mean? You see, we don't. I said, well, what do you know about 1948? Do you expect your school to teach you about the war crimes we committed? And then when I start telling them about war crimes in 1948, they line perfectly with October 7th, just to a much larger scale. And it gets them thinking. The barbarism we saw on October 7th is not unique to Hamas. It's, I would say, perhaps unique to an oppressed population that is significantly weaker than the people they fight. So they fight with a level of barbarism. And barbarism is a tricky word because it's a word given by the powerful to the weak in order to make their actions seem like it's not justified, right? So you do an airstrike on a family home to potentially kill one junior militant, and you kill a full family. That's not barbaric. That's just collateral damage, right? But if you come in and you shoot somebody at close range, well, that's barbaric. So I'm using this language, but I'm acknowledging that it's very heavily politicized by the powerful against the weak to make their actions seem unexplainable. But with all the brutality we saw on October 7th, and it was brutal, and this is not a justification. I mean, maybe those new to this channel might think that's what I'm doing here. It's not. Generally, I think non-violence is the approach we should heavily focus on, and you should only justify violence, especially violence towards civilians, when you've exhausted all other means. But it's not like their behavior is so hard to understand or so unusual. We've seen it throughout history. Weaker oppressed people against the stronger military, when they finally get power over those who have oppressed them, they act in ways that we find horrific. You're saying what war crimes in 1948? I mean, well, you have like instances of just massacres of men. You have many instances of rape. We were burning structures to make people leave. Mass displacement from homes. This is all documented, right? Like none of this. If you go to public school in Israel, you're not going to hear any of this. But this is all documented, right? The evidence we have for significant number of rape in 48 is far more than the documented cases we have on October 7th. Just to be clear, like let's be clear about that. And also the baby in the oven, we know that didn't happen on October 7th. That initial claim came from 1948. And I'm not saying it's true. We don't know it's true, but there's a Palestinian claim that they put a baby in an oven. That's where the narrative started. Also, I'm pretty sure there was also poisoning of wells. Maybe that was before 48. Yuri's saying about 12. No, Benny Morris, who again, I trust him because he's a Zionist, so he has like a pro-Israel bias, I would say. But he's willing to be honest about 48. He said he's found 30 plus documented instances of rape, and he thinks that's just scratching the surface. So Yuri, you're saying again that happens. Okay, cool, it happens. So my point is simply October 7th was not entirely unique. We've seen this happen throughout history, but Hamas is painted as uniquely evil, and Palestinians who have supported that are considered uniquely irreconcilable to justify harming them. But that's not the case. It's not as unique as we make it out to be. It's just not. Anyways, let's continue. Does anybody want to hop on? Ask questions, share thoughts? Do organizations like B'Tselem report accurately on violence against Palestinians? Yeah, B'Tselem is a legitimate NGO that does not have a history of lying, but they certainly have a bias, right? So they frame things in a certain way, they word things in a certain way. So it's not that they're completely bipartisan. No, that would be wrong to say, but they're not. If you read a report by them, it's generally backed by sources, data, evidence. I have yet to see a B'Tselem scandal where somebody has discovered something completely false that they've put out. If somebody feels differently, or if I'm missing something, let me know. But B'Tselem does good work. Yes, Levy, thanks for reminding me. I was going to actually mention that. We do see the political union of Bennett and Lapid. So this is actually pretty significant because this might actually end Netanyahu, right? A lot of people thought after October 7th he is done. I mean, if nothing else, the dude knows how to survive politically. Yeah, it took 3 years of bombing multiple countries to convince the public that no one can do it better than him. But now that there's a union between Lapid and Bennett, they are the most popular party. They even invited Gadi Eisenkot in. I don't think he will accept, but if he accepts, then that's even larger. So yeah, it might be game over for Netanyahu, but we'll see. I mean, I don't want to count him out yet because he survived this long. Yeah, you're saying, yeah, Eisenkot. Did he officially decline? He did? Okay. Gosha, yeah, I agree with you, Gosha. Gosha saying collectivization and generalization, one of the most popular cliches in political agenda. Whole Muslim world have been portrayed this way for decades in the West. Now exactly the same ways of demonizing used against all Israelis. Yeah, we should stay far away from demonizing full populations for sure. Like, if you want to demonize people based on a political ideology they hold, that's different from simply the nationality they have. And I get it; it's tricky, right? Because let's say you hold the position that anybody who supports what Israel did in Gaza, that's not somebody I want to associate with, and that's somebody who should be demonized. Well, then that's already the majority of Jewish Israelis would be in that category, right? But still, why put the Israelis who aren't in that category, the Israelis who protested and fought with police, they too hold that citizenship, right? So it's better to not focus on the nationality or some immutable characteristic, but rather a political ideology. So Irena's saying women, there's an alternative way. Women in positions of power making all decisions for at least a couple of decades, and everything will change. We tried male dominance for centuries. The results are super sad. Time to try something completely different. Um, I mean, I don't support any type of like political or economic system that rules people out based on identity, right? That's just creating more of the same problem. But you are right that a lot of the problems, like 99% of violence, comes from men. And when we see that we live in a violent world, and men dominate, okay, yeah, it seems like men are contribute. It's if women were in charge and they're much less violent, then we'd have a less violent world. Aside from the fact that it's suggesting discrimination in order to solve this, there's probably better ways to do it. But there's a deeper issue that it's not the people in power. There's a system in place that allows for certain types of people to get in power. So whenever you see a woman who becomes a leader, they often act the same way as men because they had to have certain qualities that men have to get to power, right? So to be a politician, you need to be ruthless. You need to maybe lie and cheat and cut corners, masculine qualities, or let's just say things that are more common amongst men. Um, okay, so a woman getting to the top just did the same thing, and that's why when we see women in positions of power, they also engage in in war. Yeah, okay, Nick, yes, you said the same thing. There's some pretty warlike women in power. Women in power tend to act like men in power. Yeah, exactly. Structural change. Cool. I see we're on the same page. It's biology, Dora, no one's fault. Testosterone and exactly women. Yeah, yeah, okay. But again, I mean, don't you think that's a problem to say, oh, well, some people are biologically different? I mean, that's what the race realists are saying, right? I mean, there's genetic differences between races. The racists love this point that there's differences, and they think those differences should impact how we view politics and society in general. I think don't focus on one's identity, focus on one's merit, right? So create a system where warmongers, liars, and cheats can't get in power. So if you're a woman warmonger or a man warmonger, you're irrelevant. But if you're a man or a male or female peacemaker, great. These are the people we want. Focus on the systemic change, not like making it about one's identity. Yeah, no, I mean, Hillary Clinton never saw a war she didn't support. She was a big neoconservative when it came to that. It's is that considered if you're like because she's like economically a neoliberal, which is like social issues liberal and then kind of pro corporate on the economic issues. But she's really most Democrats, the establishment, are both neoliberal and neocon. No, with that, I think you actually need to be conservative, right? So whatever. I don't care for the definition stuff. Maybe if someone has insights on it. But like neoconservative, somebody who has like conservative politics, but when it comes to war, they just love it. Just go for it. But the Democrats, corporate Democrats, love war as well. It's the one thing that unifies the Democrats and Republicans: their love for corporations and their love for war. Woohoo! Woohoo! There are significant differences, right? It's not that both parties are equal, but you know, Noam Chomsky has an amazing quote on that. Quote on. Let's see if I could find it. Yeah, he goes, the smart way to keep people passive and obedient is to strictly limit the spectrum of acceptable opinion, but allow very lively debate within that spectrum. Right? So that's how he describes the two-party system. Otto Von says, how will Lapid's leadership change the ground situation for Palestinians? If anything, Bennett have clear path on West Bank annexations. It's a good question. You know, it's very hard to know in Israeli politics what somebody really means. I mean, in all politics, right? But the Israeli public is so radical now that to be relevant in politics, you need to be a hawk. So is Lapid really as much of a hawk as he pretends to be? I'm not sure. He might be much less of a hawk than he actually, than how he portrays himself. Bennett, in many regards, is to the right of Bibi, is certainly in terms of annexation and the land being whole from the river to the sea. When he was prime minister for a little bit, he did propose it was like a 6-point plan called Reducing the Conflict, which was to drastically improve the conditions in the West Bank for Palestinians. So there's something positive there, but who knows, maybe annexation is the right thing. Maybe it'll be easier for Palestinians to engage in a civil rights movement than a national rights movement. So maybe annexation just creates a situation where Palestinians are then not fighting for statehood, but for equality, where they can be part of the system. Again, I think that would be bad for both sides ultimately if that's how it ended up being. But I'm hearing more and more Palestinians say, you know what, annex it. Let's do it. We'll fight for our political rights. It's an interesting consideration. But yeah, Bennett is more likely to do that. But even if he says it, will the U.S. allow it? Right. We also need to start expecting future U.S. presidents to be much less pro-Israel than past U.S. presidents. The day of this cringy, super pro-Israel leadership in the U.S. hopefully is behind us, and we get much more responsible and balanced leadership. So even if you wanted to annex, I don't know if it's feasible. I think there might be too many. Yeah, I get it. Irina, you're not going to convince me to create a two-tiered system in society. Like I'm against apartheid. I'm against discrimination. I'm not going to support saying men aren't allowed in power. That's just crazy. And honestly, if I'm going to be completely honest, it just shows that a lot of the people who speak about human rights and equality only do so because they're weak. But once they're powerful, then they're not going to do the same, right? Those who you should truly trust to be in power are those who are immensely privileged, and yet they still talk about helping the weak. Those who are social activists but want their power so they could discriminate against another group, those are not people we should ever trust in power. That's why the whole woke movement, God forbid they ever get power. And I know woke is just an abstract term, but you all know what I'm talking about. Right? Like you even need to think any woman who believes that men shouldn't have power is not a woman that should lead. Like that's not a psychologically healthy way to view the world. Like, why should anybody support any person that wants a discriminatory world like that? Those are the last people that should lead. Levy, we're bringing you on. Levy, what's up, man?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's been a while. How's it going on your end?
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. It's nice weather out here. In the Netherlands, if it's above 15 degrees Celsius, it's nice weather.
Right, exactly. But now it's probably starting to get nice. It's springtime, right? Like it's already starting to get too hot here, so maybe I'll come visit soon. Now's the time
All
to
right.
check out
Always
Europe.
welcome.
Thanks, man. I actually haven't been in the Netherlands in many years, so I'm long overdue. Yeah. So what's on your mind today?
No, so I was gonna about this political union, like the right after they announced it, you saw all the AI generated images from the Likud, putting it together with the Arab parties, and to me it looked very similar to in the Hungarian elections, how the Fidesz party from Orban was portraying Magyar as a puppet of Zelensky, with very similar AI slop. And thankfully there it didn't work. And although they have a full monopoly on all kind of media and advertising, it wasn't effective. But also you hear this super racist vote also from Bennett about we're not going to have Arab parties, we're not going to have non-Zionist parties, whatever that means. It's not very, for one side, the polls are positive because, it's like skyrocketed, but it's not a very attractive alternative. The alternative will be that the Arab parties will be large enough that they won't be able to exclude them, which is also very likely.
Right.
Proposition, yeah. But then all the voters will see Bennett as a liar, because he has promised so many times over that he won't include Arabs. It's a lose-lose situation.
Has there do you know if there's been a new poll since the union?
Yeah, there has been.
There has been. So
it's like
so there's no coalition without the Arab Party currently?
No, there's I think a 42 seats for Ben Lapid, and then the others are like 30 for Netanyahu, and I think 12 for the Arabs.
Okay, interesting. Let me pull that up. Latest poll.
I think it was 12, channel 12 published. I saw it on Twitter. I saw a screenshot.
Yeah, okay, I found it. I found the latest poll. Well, I think that's a great political strategy, right? More Palestinians voting. I think it's such a mistake that they, for the most part, don't involve themselves.
A lot of Israeli leftists, like Jewish leftists, who are for the inclusion, will vote for the Arab parties instead of the parties which are the natural allies of Ben Lapid, to force them for exactly this reason.
Interesting. But yeah, out of all the demographics in Israel, the ones that vote the least are Palestinian citizens of Israel, right? They're not engaged in the political process, but they have immense capacity for change if they get more involved in the system. Because we see, they're 20% of the country. If they run under a joint list, they could. When the first year they ran under a joint list, they had the third largest party. They continue to build on that momentum. They could be a significant political force, forcing whoever wins the election to need to work with them. I think it's a good strategy. Only in terms of right-wing bloc garnered 50 out of the 120 Knessets, right? You need 61. While the Zionist opposition parties received 60. Oh, well, that's awfully close, right? They're saying the Zionist opposition parties received 60 and Arab factions 10. Now,
does the Zionist opposition include Demokrati from Golan?
I would imagine so, to get to 60, but it's not. I'm trying to look for that graph. Hold on. Normally they do this cool graph. Israel. There's a Twitter site, Israel Polling or something. Hold on. Okay, I see. It was oh, hold on. I pulled up another poll. I'm just going to read it. Interesting. So, terrible poll for Netanyahu. A vast majority. So, a new poll from Khan News. A vast majority believe Israel hasn't won any arena. 17% believe Israel won Syria. 16% Israel won Gaza and Iran. 14% Israel won Lebanese front. 12% Israel defeated the Houthis. 11% defeated Palestinians in the West Bank. Well, so you know what? Israelis are actually much more grounded to reality. Like they're extreme, but they're able to honestly assess the situation that a win was sold to them, and that's not what happened. That's actually surprising. Those numbers are surprising. They're
So I recently heard about,
in Hebrew you say lo
like,
frayerim, like they're not really that easily pushovers or convinced.
Yeah, I saw like a poll from 75 where they 80% of Israelis said there will never be peace with Egypt, and 4 years later, Sadat arrives in Jerusalem, and a year later there's a peace. So I think this is something that you also say often, that polls change based on circumstances.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't know what kind of circumstances are needed for Israel, because unless there will be there is like a push from the Democrat which has quite a good following, to stop all weapons shipment. I think it was 2 weeks ago when Bernie Sanders had a vote, there was 40 Democrats in the Senate voted for it, which is 40%, which is a very high. That wouldn't have been imaginable a couple of years ago. And right. I wonder if that would make Israelis change, like if America actually vote, or if the European Union will stop the what's it called, the
right. I think there's an interesting debate to be had on that, because we have seen that when countries become more isolated, they often become more nationalist. They kind of band together. And
yeah,
so to me, it's not obvious which direction that would move the Israeli public. But if you have a good leadership, right? Let's say you have a strong leader that campaigns that Netanyahu did immense harm in the international community, and we need to repair that relationship. I think that would appeal to Israelis, because while Israelis are concerned about the loss of the support of the international community, they just don't really blame Bibi. They just blame it on anti-Semitism or just like some Western misinformation or bias, right? They have zero comprehension from where it actually comes from. And at the end of the day, it's not even Bibi. There's only so many people you could kill. There's only so many civilians you could kill. There's only so many countries you could bomb and still be supported by the world. Like, let's just be honest, But let's think through this. If some future prime minister understands the importance of the international community and they understand in order to keep that support, they need to change some policy. Now, if this leader will go to the Israeli public and say, we need to solve the conflict, we need to give back territory so the international community doesn't abandon us, I don't think that would sell. But if this leader understands the importance, and then they sell to their public that the only way to true security is through peace, and we have a historic opportunity and this and that, maybe that could work. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really just thinking it could go in both directions, really.
I mean, this is the paradox of Bennett, because Bennett, he is his roots are in extreme nationalism, and he tries to be pragmatic, and you want to be seen as a moderate, but in his core, he's not a moderate. And if he gets pushback, I'm much more afraid that he's going to lean back into that, into the mentality of they're all out to get us, and to be more antagonistic towards the world, towards Palestinians, towards everything,
right,
which doesn't blindly support him.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have a little bit of a data point here because Israel wasn't happy about the ceasefire in Lebanon that was forced by the US, right? So, and did that cause Netanyahu to lose some support? Maybe it made him seem weak. But if it's almost like the Israeli public accept that Israel needs to listen to the U.S., right? They're almost accepting of that. So if now the U.S. is just saying enough is enough, you need to do this, and then the prime minister, I don't know. It's yeah.
But who in the US would force that? Because Trump doesn't care either way. I mean, he wants quiet, doesn't really care if there's peace, if the Palestinians have autonomy or a state.
I'm talking. It would need to happen in in next election or the one after. Both the trajectory of Europe, U.S., and even Asia, right? China is like China's more anti-Israel than they used to be. So both the West and the East are increasingly anti-Israel, especially the younger generation. So the trajectory tells us, if it remains, that eventually there will be leadership that will put much more pressure on Israel. And yeah, it's kind of hard to see how they react. But even I don't even think it matters, right? Because even if the population don't support that, they didn't support Lebanon and it still happened, right? It's like, okay, the public wanted to continue in Lebanon. The US said no. So Bibi said, no, we need to end it. So maybe the public doesn't even need to consent necessarily, right? They don't need to be on board with it. But maybe if they see that progress is being made and that there's actual negotiations and Palestinians maybe make a concession or recognize Israel, then they can be convinced. Because again, we do see public opinion change very fast. So all it takes is one leader to sell peace to the people, and you'll start to see a shift in public opinion.
But who would do that? Who would be that leader?
So again,
I don't see Bennett.
No. If you're talking about in like the next 2 years, I don't think we see that leader. And I can't tell you that there is an Israeli leader that is relevant who would do that. But how would Bennett act with immense pressure from the U.S.? How would Lapid act with immense pressure from the U.S., right? The one who would probably work for this change without pressure from the U.S. is Yair Golan, but that's also why he's so unpopular, right? If you're planning on making this change without U.S. pressure, you're not relevant in Israeli politics, or hardly relevant, I would say. So that's right. So again, there's no future prospect in Israeli politics who we could trust to make drastic change, but the trajectory in the West is that there will be leadership that will put pressure on Israel, and then it's a question of how they will respond. If you have some hardline prime minister, you could see a situation where they're like, no, we don't care for your support, fuck the West, we're going to do our own thing, and then you kind of will see the North Koreification of Israel, right? They'd be increasingly isolated, or the leader would respond to them and say, guys, we need to, our survival depends on support from the international community. We need to make these concessions. I would vote on the latter. I think it's more likely that they would make the concessions rather than go full isolationist. That would be my guess.
It depends how many sensible people stay in Israel. But yeah.
Well, the most sensible ones are leaving, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not in that large of numbers that, I mean, if you could see the same trajectory for the next 30 years, then it will only be right-wingers in Israel. But for that, the trajectory doesn't, it has to continue this way. And if there is positive change, then it might not.
Right. Yeah. Well, I hope we could reassess this in the relatively near future and see that the trajectory is positive. Yeah. It's also, I mean, not only is geopolitics so hard to predict, when you take into account how fast the world is changing because of technology, especially AI, it's so hard to know where we're going to be in 5-10 years. Like AI is going to change the world likely more than the internet did. So we're facing such massive global shifts, which is why now more than ever we need good leadership, right? We need better leadership. We need leadership that understands technology and the future and where we're headed. Ones that are working towards global cooperation. The U.S. had, what is it? They've been a superpower, I guess, since the end of World War II. So since the 40s, they've had 80 years to try to build world peace, and they failed miserably. They hardly tried. They just kind of gave in to the military-industrial complex, and instead of trying to like work with China and Russia to create some global system of cooperation where we could all work together on the challenges humanity is going to face in the 21st century, it was just, nope, we just need the biggest and the best and the most and trillions of dollars and toppling governments like that. That's what the US did with their time as a superpower, and it's such a shame. And I'm not anti-American in domestically to such a large degree, right? I think the US gives their people some of the most rights in the history of the world. I very much love America for the freedom the people there have. But in terms of Western imperialism, definitely I'm anti-Western imperialism, right? I'm pro-Western freedom. It's not perfect. I'm pro-Western freedom, anti-Western imperialism. And I think this is a distinction that a lot of people aren't making. There's kind of this narrative on the right that, oh, the left hate America. They're anti-America. But I don't think my cat's fucking Peach. Come on, I know you're playing, but your teeth are sharp. Right, I think most lefties that are like seemingly anti-America, they're not really anti-America. They're anti-systemic issues in America domestically and anti-Western foreign policy, but that's very legitimate. That's not being anti-West, right? But that's all too much nuance for the mainstream convo, I guess. Let's see. We'll do a few more comments. Levy, you're welcome to continue to stick around. KB says, hi, Dar in chat. Sorry I'm late. All good. Welcome. You're saying anti-Israel sentiment is concerning. Is it though? I think it's actually promising. The most promising thing here is that there's anti-Israel sentiment. I'd say global anti-Semitism is concerning for sure. Anti-Israel sentiment, I think, is one of the surest ways to achieve peace is for the West to not be an enabler of Israel's human rights violations. The West has been an enabler. So this anti-Israel sentiment will increase the chance that the West will no longer enable Israel's human rights violations. Damn, I've literally, for the first time in my life, I've had this cat for 9 years, Peach, and she literally for the first time just made me bleed by biting me.
Oy.
It doesn't hurt. It's just surprising. Like sometimes she'll scratch me, but that's wild. Kinky, huh? Peach, you gotta chill. Gotta find you a man or something. Let's see. We have.
The ones that.
Yeah, go ahead.
The ones that attacked London today. And do you see the attack in London? I think it said Orthodox Jews were stabbed outside a synagogue.
Yeah, I saw something about that.
Golden screens.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if whatever, we don't know yet, but the attacks the last month outside of synagogues and Jewish institutions, which like I know some of them. A lot of them were by like teenagers that were hired to commit those attacks for very little money. So it was basically this shadowy, weird Shiite group that found these teenagers through Telegram or other apps where you could. Which the police have hard time to detect them, and so So I wonder if, because until now there was no harm to actual people, and this time, it was attempted murder. This is much more serious.
You're saying specifically from Shiite militants or Shiite?
Yes, yeah, the way these groups and the funding, although it's not established, it's almost definitely from funded by the RGC.
Wait.
This is what I heard from a.
So that's a very different claim, which it's definitely possible, but I would need to see evidence of that. It's true that overwhelmingly terror attacks across the world are Sunni. It's a tiny portion has been Shia. There hasn't been a single Shia attack in the U.S., right? But it seems like
there have been attempted murders in the U.S. Bunch of attempted murders against Iranian dissidents or American politicians that have
people who had like a fatwa against them. Right, like you're talking about Salman Rushdie, for example. Yeah. That's true.
But
that's
also
true.
Other Mike Pompeo has a hit out on him. John Bolton has. Trump had. A lot of politicians that have either.
Yeah, it's
Iran or.
I don't know if we're like cutting hairs with this.
It's a different kind.
Well, because it's like
a different kind of terrorism.
Exactly.
It's targeted.
I wouldn't call it jihadism as much as I would call it as like anti-imperialist political violence. And again, maybe we're splitting hairs with this, right? But it's not with the purpose of creating an Islamic caliphate, right? It's not done in the name of Islam for some Islamic goals. They view it as, you could still call it terrorism because it's political violence to achieve one's goal. So it seems more in the category of anti-imperialist political violence, but because it's done by Muslims, it seems indistinguishable from jihadism.
The attack of Salman Rushdie was very much religiously motivated. It was because he supposedly wrote because of the satanic verses that are supposedly what's it called, like ideas which go against go Islam, but it's so. But it's a different kind. There is a difference between the ISIS or Al Qaeda kind of
right,
which randomly hit populations to instill fear and to as a very different kind of intention than targeted assassinations. But I wouldn't make the difference between political or religiously motivated. I think they have both a political element and a religious element.
I would agree with that. I think that's important to note, because often what we attribute to just irrational religious fundamentalism, there's often some political goal in mind that drives it, and often the religious justification is a way to rally the masses around the cause who believe in that religion. That sounds about right. Rosuvastin. Yeah, I haven't seen any evidence that Iran has backed terror cells in the U.S. Now, the best evidence. What's that?
What I'm talking about was the last month and 2 weeks about. There were a bunch of arson attacks around synagogues and Jewish schools and also pro-Israel institutes, and those were claimed by a group which nobody has heard from before. Had a logo similar to the to Hezbollah, with the hand holding the holding the rifle. And from what I understood, I have a friend that works at Europol, and what he tells me is that these it's not organized cells. It's people from afar, similar to what the Russians did by hiring random people, either Polish or Ukrainian, to do arson attacks at random places. It's not the organized cell. It's people who are either bribed, they give them money, or they with blackmail are pushed to do these arson attacks.
But
what happens in Europe,
who's bribing them though?
Who's behind it? Who's behind it? So it's a group that is funded by the IRGC. At least that's what my friend from Europol told me.
No, okay, but yeah, but we need evidence of that, right? Like to me, I'm not saying it's not true. It might be. To me, it seems the more plausible explanation is that they're inspired by like the US is attacking, they see Iran's resilience, they're inspired by that, and they want to contribute, right? So you have Shias rising up in Europe against Jewish institutions and Jewish individuals.
But the individuals that did the attacks weren't all even Muslims. They were random teenagers, random kids that got these people reaching out to them and giving them 60 or 70 euro, which is like nothing, to throw a Molotov cocktail at the synagogue or at the Jewish school.
I mean, it's but again, that doesn't tell us who's really funding it, right? I think the best examples of Iran terror in the West is not actually Iran, it's Hezbollah, but that Iran funds. There was, the embassy bombings, or the embassy bombing in Argentina, and then another Jewish community center bombing, right? That this was Hezbollah. That they do operate on their own. They're not. It's not like they have capacity to do a bombing without Iran saying go do that bombing. But Iran does fund them, right? So you could attribute that to Iran's funding. So I think that's a good example.
You talk about the early 90s when there was these bombs.
Yeah.
In Argentina.
Yeah.
But there were like, according to the Argentinian intelligence, there were Iranian officials that were involved in the planning of that attack. So it wasn't
okay. Is that right? Are you sure about that? Because if that's true, then I'd say that's clear evidence.
I have to look it up, but I remember a couple years ago where I think they added more sanctions against Iran because this was revealed in an investigation.
Interesting. Because I looked into it more recently, like 6 months ago, and from what I recall, they said Iran's involvement is not quite clear, aside from them funding Hezbollah. But again, maybe I might be wrong about this, so feel free to send a link. You're saying Iran has attacked the West, but they often hire African Sunnis for this. Do you have an example or a source? I've never heard of this. You're saying they don't just fund Hezbollah, they also send their men to Lebanon to tell them what operations to do in the West. I mean, what operation has Hezbollah done in the West in there was a bus bombing 10 years ago. What have they done since? There's not they do send Iranian officials, they train them, they help them. They've been even more involved ever since the Syrian civil war. But in terms of Iran sending people to the West to commit terror attacks, I don't know if the evidence of that is as strong as people make it seem like, but let's see. Okay, Maxim shared, accounting for the funding Western context, Shia-backed Sunni operations, Western soil attacks by Shia-backed Sunni operations, extremely rare. Funding is almost exclusively used for regional conflicts. Independent Sunni extremism, highly prevalent. Most attacks in the West, 93% of fatalities are independent lone wolf Sunni attacks. This sounds about right. Strategic goal of Shia-backed Sunnis, geopolitical leverage, weakening Western influence in the Middle East. Independent Sunni extremism, theological, ideological war against infidels and apostates. Yeah, I mean, what I'm reading now, is this just an LLM? Because what I'm reading now was my interpretation of the situation, and how the Sunni Shia divide happens and what attacks they're both involved in. That's always been my understanding of it. There's probably some amount of deviation from this, but overwhelmingly the attacks in the West have been Sunni. Whereas Iran has been more heavily involved in anti-Western imperialism within the Middle East, not in Europe, right? Their main focus is getting Western imperialism out of the Middle East. Oh, is that actually from Wikipedia? You pull that up? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Gemini. No, okay,
Yeah,
no. Maxim used Gemini, but here we have. So you're saying this. So what are they saying? The Wikipedia says.
The Wikipedia that the Argentinian prosecutor want to extradite a certain Iranian official. Yeah, so in 2006, yeah, they accused the Iranian government of directing the bombing, and Hezbollah carried it out.
Right, but so I take a little bit of issue with this. Let me give you an example. It would almost be like blaming America for everything Israel does because of how much the US funds Israel, how much influence they have over Israel. But most people.
But they say they directed it. They directed it. It's not just that they, was inspired by them. That the instructions came from the Iranian. That's at least the Argentinian claim of the prosecutor. I haven't looked into his.
Right. No. But again, we need we need actual evidence. We can't take an official's word. Both sides have a severe interest in demonizing one another to the greatest extent possible. Like you could imagine somebody, for example, let's say, for example, Israel attacks Iran, and then Iran says the U.S. directed this. That wouldn't be a legitimate source, right? We would actually need to see evidence of the U.S. directing that. So we have a similar situation here. It's possible Iran said, Hezbollah, we're going to use you to go carry out an attack in the West. What does Iran gain from that? It's not clear. It's possible, but it's not like we have actually strong evidence to support this claim. And Yuri, the link you sent me, again, it says Hezbollah. So unless the hypothesis is that Hezbollah just does not act on their own and they're fully controlled by Iran, then you could attribute all this to Iran. I'm not under the impression that they're fully controlled by Iran. They have some level of agency. So yeah, I mean, I'm not. It's a kind of interesting conversation. I don't know how important it is, right? It's like, what does it really? How does it change the big picture? There's like
no, because we started. Somebody spoke about that the anti-Israel sentiment is concerning. You said it's not, but anti-Semitic incidents are concerning, and that's why. And that's when I brought in the incident in London today.
But what would you consider that in? But what's the relevance? Like just an example of an anti-Semitic attack?
Yes, it's relevant because, of course, like in political sense, I'm very much for the anti-Israel sentiment, and I think there must be much more pressure on Western governments to stop their support of the Israeli government. But oftentimes, what happens is that with the anti-Israel sentiment, there comes a certain either disregard for the safety of Jews.
Yeah, no.
I don't think the people who committed those attacks actually did it out of they did it because they were paid or they were pressured into it. But the fact that people take it less seriously, they say, "Oh, the Jews, they're fine, they're not." And to certain extent, of course, we have it much better than the people in Palestine or in Gaza. There's no question. But it doesn't mean that we need to minimize the seriousness of the danger.
Yep, I agree. And it sounds like what you're saying is like as anti-Israel sentiment grows, so will anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic attacks. You almost can't separate it, even though they should be separate, right? And here's just like a way to look at it. Let's say
And I mean, Israel is also very much responsible for that, because they have intentionally obfuscated the differentiation between the Jewish people and Israel. And every time there's a critique on Israel, they will claim
Correct. Yeah.
critique.
Correct. Part of Zionism is to make Judaism and support for Israel seem indistinguishable, which has caused Jewish people so much harm. But let's say there was a Muslim country that was supported by the West, let's say Saudi Arabia, or let's actually say UAE, right? Let's say there's start to be a global movement about the UAE and their use of slaves. And you had a situation where the majority of Muslims were just supportive of the UAE. Like they were on the side of defending the UAE against the West, against the West's increasing concern over them owning slaves. That is comparable to Israel and what they're doing, and the majority of Jews supporting it. And often they support it simply because of just not good information, right? If you truly believe in Gaza there's the lowest civilian to combatant ratio in history, like some of the liars are saying, then why wouldn't you support that? You're like, yeah, Israel got attacked and we're engaging in a way that is better than any country before us. Why would I be against that? So you could see how Israelis or Jews can support what Israel's doing because they just don't have access to all the information. But again, back to the example, if the Muslim country is increasingly being isolated because of their human rights violations, but most Muslims are still supporting them, you would see an increase in Islamophobia and Islamophobic attacks, almost certainly. That would be wrong. Mm-hmm. What would be right is the continued pressure on the UAE because of their use of slaves. What would be wrong is attacking Muslims, but Muslims would be attacked nonetheless. So I think we would see that play out in other examples as well. So we are seeing that happening, and yeah, it is concerning because we're you and I and many others are rooting for the continued pressure on Israel, but we don't want to see Jews around the world being attacked, and it's hard to envision how you don't have one without the other. Which is not only it's on one hand sucks, it's also strategically retarded because nothing justifies Zionism more than Jews being attacked around the world for being Jews, right? That's the whole point of Zionism, because the idea is that we can't be safe as minorities, so we need to be a majority in our own country. And if you don't because you don't like Zionism, you attack Jews, you just justify Zionism. So not only is it immoral, it's dumb, right?
Mm-hmm.
It would be Nabil says it would be wrong for Muslims to support slavery no matter who does it. Isn't slavery permissible in the Quran? It is in the Torah and the Bible.
In the Torah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But still, I would say the vast majority also of religious Jews would say it's morally indefensible.
Correct. Yeah. We make like culture often supersedes religious beliefs, right? Most Christians, most Muslims, most Jews do not support slavery, even though their books say they can. That's why that's why I always push back on like, oh, we'll never have peace with Muslims because their book says this. Like, shut up, bro. That's just like, get with the program, start understanding reality. What the book says doesn't really matter as much as the culture and the environment they're living in. How many Bosnian terror attacks have been Bosnians, Albanians, they're Muslim. Where all their terror? They're not. There's like no terror from those countries. So clearly it's not just what's written in the book. And they do the same thing with the Talmud, right? They'll point to some like problematic line in the Talmud and say that's why you can never trust Jews, because the Talmud says you could do all sorts of weird stuff.
Well, you see yesterday on.
Wait, hold on, real quick. So it's interesting. So the Quran being the latest of the texts, of the monotheistic texts, it seems like they actually made moral progress, right? Like each book was trying to kind of evolve for their times to some degree. So at least I pulled up real quick, while the Quran did not abolish slavery immediately, it restricted it and encouraged setting slaves free as a virtuous act and a penalty for some sins. Interesting. Traditionally, only captives from a lawful recognized warfare, jihad, could be enslaved, not free people or racial minorities. Okay. So they still permitted it, but they made some progress on it because it was like 1,000 years after the Bible and a few thousand years after the Torah. And Nabil, as a Muslim, you're saying we're not in the Middle Ages anymore. It's morally wrong and indefensible to support slavery. Yeah, I agree completely. I will say, though, some of the countries that have the worst slavery issues today are Muslim nations, right? So that is something that, Muslims internally should address, specifically being UAE, Libya, and what's it? Well, what's that African? Is it Mauritania or Mauritius? I always confuse those. What's the big slave country in Africa? Mauritania. It's Mauritania, right? Mauritania. It's like one of the least. Yeah, Mauritania. It's one of the least known countries in the world, and they have from what I understand, a pretty serious slavery issues. But the worst, from what I understand, is actually in Asia, Thailand. I think even China. There's like slavery issues there. There's more slaves today than there's been in any time in history. Now, that's largely because we have much more people, but it's not like slavery is a thing of the past. There's a lot of slaves. And then you have all countries that have some amount of women who are trafficked, right? Sex workers who are trafficked, which is a form of slavery. So it's still far too prevalent. And again, it supersedes religion and culture. We've seen it, throughout all cultures and all religions historically. I don't want to say all religions. I don't imagine the Jains ever had slaves. They don't seem like the types, but they're an outlier. All right, we have some people raising their hands. Feel free to stick around. Levy, let's see the order. House of Atreus, you're first, so we're going to bring you on. Before we get started, is it Atreus or Atreus?
Either one works.
Okay, welcome.
How's it going, buddy?
Good. How are you?
All right, man. Yeah, no, our first conversation didn't go as. I thought that your position was a different position. Well, I disagree with your position for the most part. I felt like your intentions were different. Now I see your intentions are positive. I just still disagree with your position. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I agree. Our first conversation didn't go well. It seemed like I would say something and you would kind of like respond something completely different. It felt like you weren't listening. But let's put that behind us and try to make the second conversation more productive.
Awesome. Yeah. So I heard a lot of comparisons between Israel and Iran and what Israel's doing and what Iran's doing. Does anyone truly believe that Israel is doing the same thing as Iran? The assassinations that Israel does and so forth, these are done to help the world. And the stuff that Iran does is clearly just to prop up the regime.
No, I don't think I agree with that framing. I think the assassinations Israel does is to support Israel's geopolitical agenda, and what Iran does is to support their geopolitical agenda. They're both acting in their perceived best interest. The biggest distinction between them is Iran has a far worse record for human rights violations of their own people, right? The Israelis have access to far greater liberties than the average Iranian by a very large margin. But in terms of the human rights violations towards other people, Israel is far worse than Iran.
What does that mean? You're talking about the assassinations they've done?
No, I'm talking about like 20,000 dead children in Gaza. I'm talking about over 50 years of.
But that's not Israel's not intentionally trying to do that. Hamas is putting them in the front lines and putting them in the hospitals. And
No. Look,
you think Israel is trying to kill children?
I don't think it's trying. I think it's just a callous disregard for life. So Israel could have done proper evacuations and removed women, children, and elderly out of Gaza relatively easily and saved 20,000 children. You can't always.
Honestly, I kind of agree on some level. I thought that they should have put them in like the Golan or in.
You have the
Negev or something?
Yeah, the Negev, Area A. There's many solutions. I don't like so much of Western framing is we didn't mean to kill, right? This is like an imperial narrative. We didn't mean to kill, so it's not that bad. But when you kill significantly more, you cannot hide behind intentionality. What Israel did in Gaza, right? If you kill 20,000 children when you didn't have to, you just murdered 20,000 children. That to me is moral clarity. To obfuscate and say, no, collateral damage, this and that. No, Israel's been violating the rights of Palestinians for every single day of their existence. There's never
anytime children die, it's shitty. And even if, like, okay, for example, let's say there's a child, like, I don't know, some 10, 12-year-old or something that has an AK-47, he's running after you, shooting you.
There's not a single documented case of that in Gaza. We don't have a single document.
I'm just giving an example. Okay? Let's say that that's happening and you see an AK-47, you're able to grab it. You're going to grab it and shoot it, or you're going to just, I don't know, what are you going to do?
So, you know, as someone who served in the IDF, right, here's what they used to tell us. And the laws of engagement they teach you in the IDF are actually to reduce civilian harm. It's just in practice, they're not followed. And after October 7th, they were completely thrown out the window. But they tell you, if somebody's coming up to you and they seem suspicious, you yell at them to stop. If they don't stop, you yell at them again. If they don't stop, you shoot in the air. If they don't stop, you shoot at their legs. That's often not followed, but that's what we're taught. But they tell you, if your life is in danger, you shoot to kill, even if it's a child, right? They will tell you to shoot a child. But in Gaza, we have very little evidence of child combatants. And the child combatants that we do have evidence of are 16 and 17-year-olds. And we don't have evidence of there being many of those. So the children that were killed were over. What's that?
No, you were going to answer, I think.
Oh yeah, no. So the rate at which children were killed is very unusual in Gaza. It's significantly worse than any other 21st century conflict if you account for population size, right? So
how do you think the children are dying?
Primarily airstrikes. Primarily airstrikes, and then some are being shot in no-go zones. So what Israel did, which is also unprecedented, right? There's so much, like we often hear from propagandists like John Spencer, and people eat up this narrative that Israel acts in unprecedented ways to reduce civilian harm, but it's actually not, in Gaza, absolutely not true. Israel acted in many unprecedented ways that increased civilian harm that other nations didn't. So, for example, generally during war, you give proper and ample time for evacuations. Israel did not do that. Israel used a record level of high-powered weaponry on very densely populated areas without proper evacuations, while the militants you're claiming to go are actually hidden in tunnels. And you worked
in the IDF.
Yeah, I was in the IDF. Yeah, sorry. I did 3 years. So
yeah, so I mean, you must know that they give warning, ample warnings.
No. That's not.
They call the things and they what?
That's true only sometimes. They don't always give warnings, because if you now have intel, and it definitely wasn't really true to a large extent after October 7th, if you have intel that there's, let's say, and we have IDF whistleblowers who told us this is how Israel was operating. Let's say you have a situation where you have intel that there's some combatant in a building in his family. Let's say he's in his family home, right? A junior combatant in his family home. Israel will blow. Why would they give warnings? Then the combatant will leave. They want to kill the combatant, so they blow up the whole building, kill the entire family and other families that live there. Other nations, there's no historical precedent. Assad did not do this in Syria. Putin's not doing this in Ukraine. The U.S. did not do this in Iran. The idea of killing junior militants in their homes with their family is unheard of. Okay, stopping all aid from coming in is unprecedented. The systematic destruction of vital.
That's the one in the concept.
Okay, sure.
Right? So, like, the warnings. I mean, that is something that a lot of Israeli supporters have a problem with giving the warning so that people can run away or whatever it is. I feel personally that it's like they can see what's going on, they can see who's running away or whatever it is, and if some Hamas agent, soldier, whatever it is, who they're trying to kill, runs away, whatever, they'll find them, they'll see them. So I'm okay with them giving the warnings. But from what I'm aware, that they give warnings any of these situations.
No, they absolutely do not. Why?
Who are bombed into situations, they have the chance to get the children out. They don't want to. They want children to die.
Wait. I agree. I think when children die, it's very bad for Israel's PR. I think that if Israel had a way to only kill militants and destroy every militant without killing children, I think they would opt to do that because it would allow them to do. Yeah, but again, that's not the reality. The reality is they're dealing with a militant group that's embedded within the city, primarily underneath. And the way they dealt with it is completely callous and cold and unprecedented in many ways. But the whole idea is that they warn every time simply isn't true. If they warned every time, then
if you agree that it only hurts them to have these kind of casual children and women and innocent people, then why would they do it? It just doesn't make sense to me.
No, because the more you care for civilians, the more you care for civilians, the more you put yourself at a disadvantage militarily, right? Israel didn't want to be at any disadvantage militarily. They didn't want to need to take precaution time. They didn't want to need to wait to do evacuations. They just went gung ho. Now,
they have to combat against a terrorist organization that operates out of hospitals and schools.
Okay. Wait. But wait.
If Hamas cared about their people, they would put them in the tunnels, or they would build bomb shelters like Israel does.
Wait. Hold on. You said one at a time. You're now going. It's a very common thing. It's whenever we talk about something horrific Israel does, it's always but Hamas this, but Hamas that. Do you want to talk? Do you want to?
No, I'm saying.
No. Wait, but Atreus, I'm not here defending Hamas, right? You're here defending Israel. Yeah. That's the difference, okay? I don't defend terror organizations. Hold on. I don't defend.
Your intention is not to,
yeah. I don't defend terror organizations. Not the IDF or not Hamas. Okay. Only one person here is doing that. But let's talk about the IDF and their actions. Now, while I do think they didn't want to kill.
IDF a terror organization?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. They engage in mass terror. Yeah, you can't kill 2% of the children in Gaza.
Unfair, but.
Okay, I mean, what's unfair is killing 20,000 children, not calling the IDF a terror organization.
I agree.
But okay, now
we put the responsibility on different people, right? I put it on Hamas. I'm not saying you're defending Hamas. What I'm saying is that for me, I put the responsibility completely on Hamas. If Hamas wanted to save their civilians, if they cared at all, they would put them in the tunnels or build at least shelters. But I mean, they could have put every single one of the civilians in the tunnels, and none of them would have been.
No. Why? Wait.
Come on now.
Wait. Hold on. First of all, you cannot put 2 million people in the tunnels. That's just ridiculous. Second, the tunnels are used for military purposes. The second so yeah, Hamas is valuing their military advantage. Hold on. It's actually very similar. What Hamas does is similar to what Israel does. They value their military advantage over the Palestinian civilians, right? So Hamas isn't going to put civilians in tunnels because then they can't use the tunnels. They need to use those tunnels so they can have some small advantage over a much more powerful entity. So yeah, they don't. So they're not going to let their civilians go in. And then a second benefit is there's PR benefit when their civilians get killed, and it puts increased pressure on Israel. So they don't care about their civilians, but neither does Israel. And when Israel makes a decision to
build bomb shelters.
A bomb shelter doesn't do anything against an airstrike. I mean, it could protect you against shrapnel. That actually, they could have. But again, hold on. No. If Israel strikes a bomb shelter, people in the bomb shelter are going to die. But again, you're going back to saying why Hamas is bad. I agree with you. Hamas is bad, right? That's not our disagreement. If Hamas is bad and they don't care about their civilians, how is Israel then good for actually dropping bombs on those civilians? It also shows that they're bad. If Israel can,
but what do you expect Israel to do? Because Israel can't go in there and just start.
Okay.
They can't just put ground forces in. There's forces to be killed.
Okay, so
it's stupid to do that, yeah.
So what?
You understand that? I mean, that's
So what should Israel do? I started getting into it.
That's what I was going to ask you. That's what I was going to ask you. That's exactly what. Because I would say airstrikes. It's like, yeah, you got to do airstrikes.
Okay, so
Israel's doing bunker bomb clusters, so it's like they're
Do you want to? You want to?
point is
Do you want to hear my answer? What Israel should have done?
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk about a military route because I actually think there's a non-military route, but that's a whole nother conversation. We're so conditioned to think that you need to respond to violence with even more violence, and I think it's a mistake. But that's a deep-rooted conditioning, one that we need to evolve past. But let's assume that you respond militarily, right? First, proper evacuations. Again, that's where the conversation started. You remove the civilian population. You separate the civilian population from the force you're trying to fight. Israel did a horrible job at doing that. That's massive. We killed 20,000 children when we didn't have to. It was not a necessity. It was a choice. Another thing we did.
Where are these numbers coming from? Is this Hamas numbers?
So the Gaza Ministry of Health, every few months, the Gaza Ministry of Health releases a list of names and ID numbers of all those killed. All these names and ID numbers exist in the Palestinian Population Registry, which Israel has full control of, right? So you actually have an unprecedented capacity to verify data coming out of Gaza, because you almost never have one warring party controlling the population registry of the party they're at war with. In Gaza, you do. So we have their names and ID numbers. I could pull up the spreadsheet now if you want. It's also public. It's public for anybody to see and scrutinize. So we know these numbers are legit. Now, so that's one. One is just not doing proper evacuations.
I don't know, because Hamas's numbers they change.
What do you mean?
So I mean, when it comes to
what do you mean?
Like at the end of the war, Hamas and Israel's numbers kind of coincide, and they're both accurate. But during the war, they're not very accurate. So
no, you're talking about past conflicts. What I'm telling you, look, wait, hold on. You don't need you could do this research on your own, but we have a list right now with 72,000 names, right, and ID numbers. They all exist in the Palestinian Population Registry. No one has better ability to prove that there's fraud on this list than Israel. Israel has not come out making any claims of this list being fraudulent. So we have very good data, and the Ministry of Health is actually more thorough in the data they release than any. Like it's quite unusual how the Ministry of Health reports, and it's also unusual that Israel can actually verify it. So we have this list. We know these people are dead, and we know the numbers are unlike any other 21st century conflict. To find a conflict where you have a higher rate of children being killed, meaning children killed per 100,000 per year. Violent deaths, right? Because you do have instances of mass malnutrition with high child fatality rate, but violent deaths, you need to go all the way back to Rwanda genocide. Now, Rwanda was much worse, but you don't have any 21st century precedent for what Israel's doing. Now, so one is proper evacuations. We didn't do that. Two, Israel systematically destroyed the means of life in Gaza, systematically destroying vital civilian infrastructure.
Like I said.
Okay, but that's huge, right? That, like, to me, to me, that's saying
it is. But here's the thing: me saying that I agree living in Canada means nothing. Because if I was living in Israel, my position might be different. Like I could understand why Israelis wouldn't want, a bunch of refugees coming who, they think might want them dead, or might have actually been part of October 7th or something.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. People.
I mean, I'm sure you must as well. Like you have family. I'm sure that.
Oh, my
entire
entire family. Or almost my entire family. Yeah, I've convinced a few of them, but most of my family are settlers, religious settlers. So I'm very much in the thick of it.
I've seen some of your debates. That's why I agree that I changed my position that your intentions are good. I still disagree with your assessment, but I feel like your intentions are good versus some other people who are clearly just trying to destroy Israel.
Fair. Okay.
I don't know if you were in charge. I don't know if maybe Israel would just be destroyed as it is. I mean, like, how would you protect Israel? What would you do? To defend Israel in this situation? Mm-hmm.
I want to just stay on the Gaza topic real quick, and then I'll answer that, and then we'll bring Ahmed on because he has been waiting. But so one of them was just the lack of evacuations. The second was just the level of proportionality Israel engaged in, right? We know from whistleblowers that it was permissible to kill 20 civilians, up to 20 civilians to get one junior militant, and over 100 civilians for one senior militant. Again, this is just unheard of. Killing junior militants in their home with their families, unheard of. A third point is that Israel actually blocked aid from coming in for many months, creating malnutrition in Gaza. Not many people died, but a few hundred died of malnutrition. But the greater impact is the health issues. Like if you're malnourished as a child, it affects your IQ. You'll have health complications your whole life. We don't know how many tens of thousands have been impacted by that. Another is just destroying vital civilian infrastructure, systematic destruction of homes, medical infrastructure, farmland, water infrastructure like wells, pipes, desalination. We turned large swaths of Gaza into no-go zones where it was permissible to shoot anyone on sight, men, women, and children. Some of the more less extreme units were not shooting men, women, and children on sight, but we're shooting every man on sight. This is all stuff that is not a necessity in war. It's a choice. It's a callous choice. It's barbaric and it's murderous. So if anybody who cares, anybody who like this is why I think this is one of my biggest issues with Zionism. Because if Zionism simply means you believe in Jewish self-determination, why can't you believe in Jewish self-determination without saying what Israel did in Gaza is absolutely unacceptable? For whatever reason, people who
war is unacceptable. Yeah, I mean, war sucks.
No, wait, Atris. I want this conversation to be productive, but it's what that to me does not come off as a good faith comment. We're not talking about war. I gave you a set of actions that Israel engaged in that is not just war.
Okay, so let me touch.
It's not just war. These are specific actions that you can wage war without doing these specific actions. These actions are not necessary, but they're barbaric and murderous. And nobody.
Okay, so your first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Your first example was the blockade, right? I agree with you. The blockade was a shitty situation. If it was me, I would have given extra food to whatever it was. Their reason was not for starvation. I'm sure you understand this. Their reason, or even Netanyahu or whoever made this action, the intention was to try to smoke out Hamas, to show that the Gaza people, that Hamas is stealing their food. And I think it was a stupid. I mean, it worked. Hamas, the Gaza people did realize that Hamas was stealing their food, and they tried to fight against them, but then they started getting killed. But yeah, I disagree with the blockade. I think they should have given extra food because the way it looks is like the Jews are trying to starve children in Gaza, and that adds to the what's it called, the Elders of Zion kind of nonsense about Jews trying to kill children.
Wait, how does that smoke out Hamas though?
Because it shows the Gazan people that Hamas is stealing their food.
But I don't think they
had 6 months of food. Technically, they had 6 months worth of food in Gaza. They should have been fine, but Hamas was stealing their food, which made them. It wasn't Israel that.
No, wait. Hold on. Atris, just so you know, both Israel as well as the UN investigation came back saying they don't have any evidence of systematic theft of food by Hamas. What seems to be happening is that there were individual Hamas militants who stole food, but also other Gazan militants stole food in order to monetize it. But the only reason there was a capacity.
There's videos of Hamas stealing food.
No. There's video. Hold on. No, there's videos of armed gunmen stealing food. You don't know who they belong to.
Yeah.
How do you know? Wait, how do you know?
Come on.
Wait.
Anyways, okay, sure.
Wait. What do you mean? Oh, come on. Do you know how many different armed groups there are in Gaza? But the only reason why food was monetizable is because Israel stopped food from coming in. The way to not allow any militant group, including Hamas, to monetize food is to flood Gaza with food to destroy the market. You give so much, right?
I agree, yeah.
Okay. So it was much more likely not an attempt to smoke out. It was to inflict pain on the civilian population with the hopes that maybe they turn on Hamas. Hold on, with the hopes of maybe they turn on Hamas, or inflict so much pain on the civilian population that Hamas just wants to end it. Because Hamas are, at the end of the day, individuals who they don't want to see their children and wives and family members starve to death. So you could see, and while I did say earlier why I don't think Israel wanted to kill, hold on, why I don't think Israel wanted to kill 20,000 children, I do see clear benefits for why Israel had an incentive to harm civilians, right? So I
disagree, but
well, maybe what do you disagree with? I said there's clear incentives. You can't think.
What was my answer?
No, but
that their intention was to smoke out, not smoke out, but to show the Gazan people that Hamas is stealing their food. I mean, you can disagree.
Okay,
with
no, fine. I thought you meant no. When I said there's, can you think of it? Can you think of an incentive Israel would have to harm the civilians in Gaza?
No, we both agreed that it's only detrimental to do.
No. So actually, I don't. I think it's partially detrimental, but I actually think there's clear incentive. So first,
what's the benefit? Yeah.
Well, so first of all, I think after October 7th, it was such a massive failure for Netanyahu that he was looking for any victory he could get, and defeating Hamas was always unrealistic, right? Unlike October 11th, I was saying, guys, whoever thinks Hamas will be defeated, this most likely won't happen, right? It was, and again, who knows? There still maybe will be defeated, who knows? But it was always an unlikely possibility. But
I'm sure people thought that about the Nazis as well. And
yeah.
There still are some Nazis, so it's like it's not completely defeated. But
perhaps,
and honestly, right now the situation is where there's Nazis just popping out of everywhere without being educated on that subject. Just the propaganda alone is turning them into Nazis. But
perhaps we have a much greater record and consistent history of being able to defeat other militaries through force. Terror organizations are much harder to defeat, or resistance groups just in general are much harder to defeat through military force. But to me, it seems like one of the greatest wins Israel could have achieved was to relocate Gazans, right? Actually have Gazans leave forever. That would have been a major. Okay, cool. So you agree that Israel would have seen that as a victory, right? If Netanyahu achieved to ethnically cleanse all of Gaza, he would have been seen as a hero in the Israeli public. Would you agree with that?
What do you mean by ethnically cleanse? Like evacuate all of Gaza?
Yeah, but then not let them return. Yeah, get them all out, but not.
I don't think so. I think that it would be more of a win, I guess, like you're saying, to do that in the West Bank and push everybody into Gaza. Like, I'll agree with that sentiment. I don't think Israel has any intention or cares about Gaza.
Wait.
Gaza has no historical value to Israel.
No, but again, it's not just historical value. You literally have like an enclave very close to Israeli towns with a population that doesn't like you. Why wouldn't we want to settle a coastal city and get rid of an enemy population? Israelis. And wait, hold on. This is what's that?
Where are they going to push them into? The West Bank?
No, Egypt. Send them to Somaliland. Who the fuck? Like,
I'm not going to take them. I mean, listen.
No. Wait. Hold on. Wait.
If Netanyahu could, yeah, sure.
I want to stay focused. You said it's not going to happen. That's not what we're talking about. Would the Israeli population want that to happen?
I want to correct myself. If Netanyahu could send them to Somaliland, I think he would.
Great. And the Israeli public would be happy about that. Correct?
No, not all of them.
No, the majority.
His base would.
Okay, so we have polling data to support this. The overwhelming majority of Jewish Israelis support ethnic cleansing Palestinians in both Gaza and the West Bank. There's been polls supporting this the past few years, okay? So this isn't even speculative. The best way to get Gazans to leave and with the international community watching is not going door to door and forcing them into Egypt. It's to get them to voluntarily leave. The best way to get them to voluntarily leave is to make Gaza unlivable by destroying the means of life in Gaza. And that's why we systematically destroyed civilian infrastructure, and to make life in Gaza unbearable. So there's a clear reason to want to harm civilians. And that's just one point. The second point is you could see that maybe it'll cause Hamas to surrender, right? You could look at it like a Hiroshima, Nagasaki type thing, that if you inflict enough pain on the civilian population, that either they'll turn on Hamas or Hamas will surrender. That's another strategy. The third is just a deterrent. If plan A and plan B don't work, then at least inflict so much pain on the population that they never want something like that to happen again. So there's clear incentive to harm civilians. And then when you look at Israel's actions and how many civilians they harmed, so I do actually think they did to some degree want to harm civilians. I just think if they could reduce the number they killed, like if they could have killed 3 times as many Hamas militants and half as many civilians, they would choose to do that. But given the reality, they had a clear incentive to harm civilians, and they very clearly did.
I'll agree that, like I said, Netanyahu would like that outcome. I don't know how much. I mean, they might be trying to evacuate. They're definitely trying to evacuate as many people as they can. Like you said, I mean, it would be preferable to do it that way. However, I don't think Israel is able to just forcibly evacuate anybody. Not anybody, but everybody.
Wait, I missed the last sentence.
I don't think that's a reality.
To
I don't think Israel's able to forcibly evacuate everybody.
Well, no, I mean, if I think they were hoping that there would just be a mass exodus into Egypt. I think it's one of the reasons why we started in the north and told.
Not gonna allow that.
We told everybody.
We'll kill them all.
No, I know, but there was a hope in practice. But that's why we started in the north. We pushed everybody south, which isn't even. You would think if you're focused purely on military gain, you should actually start by taking the south because you want to take the Philadelphia corridor. You want to take any access Hamas might have to new weapons. So you should start with the south. But no, they started with the north because they wanted to push people south with the hope they would leave. And on October 8th, there was already a plan circulating in Knesset, in Israeli government, on how to relocate Gazans. And Netanyahu and Trump were both vocal about their goal to relocate Gazans, right? So it was an attempt. It just failed. Yeah. And they're still trying. They're still trying. Real quick, I just want to address some comments. Aman is saying, what's your take on Nick the Goat Matau? So his name's coming up more and more. I haven't seen all too much of his stuff. People are calling him like the top Zionist debater these days. Look, I watched a few minutes and I'm going to be honest, I was not impressed. I would gladly have a debate with him, right? That goes without saying. Would he agree? I'm not sure. But yeah, if somebody wants to connect us, let's do it. Why'd I say I wasn't impressed? Look, I think it's very easy to be a good debater against random internet people and college campus students. But like, what's one clip I saw that was just like, that's not legit. Somebody said, I don't think Iran wanted to build nukes. He's like, oh yeah? Well, here's an IRGC officer saying we wanted to build nukes. So he found a single quote in like,
wait, you don't think Iran wants to build nukes?
No. That's not what I'm talking about. Pay attention. No, first of all, I think they're moving closer to breakthrough. I don't think they were ever rushing towards a nuke, because if they were, they would have had one. In the 90s, they could have gotten one. But the college student said to Nick,
I mean, the fact that they refused to have inspections, that alone is
well, but but they signed the JCPOA and they were fully compliant with inspections, and they didn't violate the JCPOA once. They only violated after Trump ripped it up. So they were fully compliant. But I want to go back to this clip just because somebody asked. And again, if Nick wants to come on or I do something on his channel, happy to do it. But the one clip I saw, which just was not impressive at all, was some college student said, I don't think Iran wants to build nukes. And his proof that Iran does want to build nukes was finding one single quote from an IRGC guard saying, yeah, of course we want to build nukes. And then the interview, I don't think he showed this part of the clip, but the interviewer said, I'm surprised you're saying this. No one else is saying this. He's like, yeah, but nobody really cares what I say. That's him admitting that he's like some low-level person that doesn't have a lot of influence. But that's not how you can build, like, that's not real evidence, right? If somebody were to say, I believe Israel wants to achieve greater Israel because look what Smotrich said, Nick would rightfully point out that that's bullshit evidence, but he's using that as legitimate evidence, right? So that's most of what I saw.
Greater Israel?
That's most of what I saw him do, and I'm like, okay, if they, like, is this the GOAT? Is this the best they got? But who knows? Who knows? But yeah,
I've never heard of this guy before. But
yeah, more people. He's been blowing up. He's definitely like much more consistent. I'm not sure. The reason I say I don't think he would debate me is because it's just like I'm such a non-consistent streamer and don't really have, like, I have relatively small following, so like my knowledge on the topic compared to my following makes a lot of people not want to debate me because they have little to gain and a lot to lose, right? Like if you're gonna do a debate against somebody who's well informed, you might as well do it with somebody who has a big platform so you could get more exposure. Like why go to somebody with like a relatively small platform who's very well informed? What do you have to gain? And that's why I think the rejection rate as of late has been very high, right? Back in the day, like years ago, right when I started, people would come on no problem. Anybody would come on to discuss and debate. And now the pro-Israel side, it's like, and I don't do, I do barely do any outreach, but it's like 1 out of 10 will agree these days. But who knows? Maybe it'll happen.
Well, I'm here.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you coming on. It's the bigger names that refuse. Atreus, you're welcome to stay on, but I'm going to give it over to Ahmed and then Mutual. Did you want to say any last words before we keep it moving?
No, that's cool.
Awesome. I think our second conversation definitely was more productive, so I appreciate that.
For sure. I mean, I'd like to continue it, but there's other people that want to speak.
Yeah. We'll have more time. I'm back to streaming for now, so yeah.
Yeah. Cool, bro.
Ahmed, what's up? What's up, brother? Kif halak?
Alhamdulillah. We don't say that in Egypt. We say zayak.
Wait, you don't say kif halak, you say zayak?
Yeah.
Interesting. What's the direct translation?
Zayak means how are you, I guess, but in a very
okay,
bad Arabic.
That's one of the
way.
reasons why Arabic is so hard is because literally not only a different country. I go to different towns between the river and the sea, and they have different expressions. So it's like, yo, how do you even get a hang of this?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
I mean, it's really.
I might be saying this wrong. In Morocco, they say kol halak halak, something like that. Does that ring a bell?
What? Say that again. They say labas, like labas, which means.
Oh, labas. Yeah, labas is that's a thing too.
Yeah, they're all. It's really a family of languages as opposed to a single language. But yeah, I raised my hand a long time ago, but mostly I'm not sure I share your optimism about the West changing its attitude towards Israel. I mean, even in the current situation where there's such a massive shift in public opinion, there hasn't really been any concrete steps taken by any government in Europe or the US to really pressure Israel. You mentioned the example of 40 senators voting for Bernie Sanders's proposal. I suspect if that gets closer to 50, it would be pushed down. It would never make it. I think that Bennett getting elected, which looks like, that's the path we're going towards, will just give all these people cover to say, look, the government has changed, Netanyahu is gone, and they'll just revert to the lobbyist approved positions. I think that the instruments that Israel influences politics, especially in the US, are so deeply ingrained and powerful that I don't know. I think it's just something that will revert to the mean eventually.
Well, so let's talk through this. You said like we haven't seen any noticeable change, but we have seen like arms like multiple European countries are no longer willing to send offensive arms to Israel. Like that has like would have been unthinkable just like 5 years ago, right? And we have yet to see the change in public sentiment against Israel is so recent that it still has not impacted who's in power, right? But now in the US, you have a lot of politicians, more and more politicians running on the America First and anti-Israel platform. So it's not, maybe the existing politicians are not going to change all too much, although the amount of senators that supported Bernie Sanders is also a positive sign. But I'm talking about, another election cycle, you get more candidates that are either anti-Israel or just not super supportive of Israel. You could see how within 1, 2, 3 election cycles, you have a very different political makeup that will pressure Israel differently than they're currently being pressured. I might be wrong, but to me, that's what the trajectory seems.
Yeah, like all the weapons bans that came out of Europe were mostly symbolic, nothing really that affects Israel in any meaningful way. And, they know that. The politicians that are making these decisions know that. And even most of them get reverted once the public kind of is no longer looking. And I think right now in the US, there is a moment where the most politically expedient thing to say publicly is that you are opposing what Israel is doing, especially on the democratic side of things.
Right.
But that movement is very nascent. It will take a really long time for that movement to have any real power. And in the meantime, the establishment is still in the establishment. Like the democratic establishment is still, strictly pro-Israel, and even if they're not, making public statements supporting Israel as much as they used to, like Schumer and whatnot, but they're obviously still very much pro-Israel, and they're still very much in control. Like one election cycle, maybe a bunch of people that oppose Israel, that oppose AIPAC get elected. But then once the Democrats come back in power and control the House and the Senate, then the establishment will be like, look, we won, and just like they'll come up with reasons for why they're the ones who created the win, and they'll just like push out these people that are coming from the left and opposing Israel back to the periphery. And it would take like a huge amount of time and effort and complete change to the way the political system is set up in the US for there to be meaningful change. And I think clearly Israel is banking on this, because otherwise the current trajectory and the current posture is just not really sustainable at all.
Well, I think you point to like a deeper issue in U.S. politics, that there's, politicians pay lip service to get elected, but then at the end of the day, they act in accordance to corporate interests. So what makes us think that that won't be the same with the anti-Israel narrative? That's possible. Yeah, I mean, maybe. I would say we have reason for like careful optimism, right? Like I would agree with you. It'd be wrong to just be like, yeah, guys, 10 years, we're good. Don't worry, we're good. I would say that's probably overly optimistic. But I think we should feel positive about the trajectory.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that we put too much emphasis on that when it's something that will take a really long time, and
So what do you think is a better use of effort? Like, where should we put the emphasis?
I mean, I think the current situation in for the Palestinians and now for the Lebanese is too urgent to be focused on like the West coming around and putting pressure on Israel. And I think, as much as I think it's kind of more or less hopeless, but I think it's even more likely that the change will come from within Israel than from outside, because at the end of the day,
you think more likely that it'll come from within Israel?
I think it's more achievable in a direct way. Like, at the end of the day, Israel can't do what it's doing without public buy-in, without IDF soldiers carrying out the actions, without the entire country being supporting these wars and all that stuff. And so I think waiting on the West to put pressure on Israel is probably not a very good bet. I think trying to, again, I'm not super optimistic that will work, but trying to somehow make Israelis understand what is happening and what's being done in their name, and how this is not a very sustainable, or like this whole illusion that at some point we're gonna do enough violence that people will leave us alone, which has been tried now for 80 years and has not worked. I think that's the thing that people should focus on.
Okay, so I'm a big supporter of grassroots movement, right? And that used to be more of my focus in activism, but I no longer believe that is feasible within Israeli society because of how radicalized our population has become. I don't want to say it's impossible, but I think it's the least likely positive outcome is Israelis having some revolution from within that is pro-peace. The trajectory is just the complete opposite of that. The younger generation is more extreme than the older generation. There's nothing we could point to that should give us hope that that's what's going to happen. So international community trajectory is much more positive trending than Israeli population trajectory. So yeah, I would say careful optimism for international community, but like severe pessimism from it coming within Israel.
Yeah, I'm just not optimistic on either side, I guess.
Yeah, fair. Well, that's this thought I had yesterday. It's like, what was it? It's like the difference between optimism, pessimism, and realism, right? I don't see, wait, what was it? Sometimes you have those random thoughts, and like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's like, the cup is not half full, it's not half empty, it's just halfway filled. That's the difference between, like, one is optimism, one is pessimism, the other is just realism. It's not full or empty, it's just halfway filled. So I think that's the realistic position is the best. But it's good to stay hopeful, right? Because if you're completely hopeless, then you're not motivated to act for change, right? It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't believe that change is possible, then change won't happen. Change only happens when enough people act in order to create change. So believing it is essential. And I'll even admit something. I'm not as optimistic as I promote, but I promote a greater optimism than I feel because I understand it's important for society to believe in change because it increases the chance in change, right? So part of it, I'm just I'm scamming y'all. I don't believe in it. I'm kidding. I don't quote that. I definitely believe it, but I certainly promote greater optimism because I understand it to be healthy for societies, and just I don't want this self-fulfilling prophecy of hopelessness to play out, you know. But if we're being very realistic, yeah, I could see a situation where, you know, we have many more generations of conflict. But we also just need to acknowledge how fast the world is changing because of technology, and it's just like in 10 years the world is going to be unrecognizable from now, right?
Yeah, the only thing that is keeping me from giving up completely is ignoring that aspect, because I don't think that will be a positive change at all. And
the technological change.
I think that will skew things more in favor of the violence and the, for lack of a better term, the evil side of things, as opposed to
interesting.
Yeah, like the power is concentrated in the hands of even fewer people with AI and technology, and you know,
right,
that concentration is kind of a big part of the reason we are where we are now, and it will only get worse. But maybe I'm wrong.
Well, inshallah not, you know.
Inshallah.
I want to read another comment. Soap with a Prize says, Adar, Andrew Fox was on Comedy Cellar podcast last week. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. To spin his line about civilian casualties completely unchallenged. Dorman's lopsidedness on a whole issue is maddening, but the difference between how we approach this issue with you and Fox is a whole different level of glaring. what you're saying, he just didn't really push back. I actually spoke to Noam today. He's having Eisenberg on today. So it's funny you say, I take it you never heard back about further from him asking if Eisenberg or Spencer would talk to you. They both refused. But I did give him, because he's talking to Eisenberg, I did send him multiple false claims Eisenberg made. So he has some ammo to challenge him on. But you're saying he didn't challenge Fox? Look, here's what I've look. I like Noam. I really do. And again, I haven't watched many of his conversations, but in his conversation with me, it seemed like at least somebody who's watched every episode of his said he conceded a lot of ground on the humanitarian issue, right? Like he said something. If I was living in Israel, I would want my children to do protective presence. I mean, that's a pretty serious thing to say. What my take on him, though, and he said this to me explicitly, he finds it hard to criticize Israel because he doesn't want to give more fodder to the anti-Israel movement. So he does take issue with the direction Israel is heading in, but he is so concerned with the rise of this like radical left anti-Israel haters, he wants nothing to do with that. And I think that's actually important to know, because a lot of what we see in the movement does turn off people, right? Like one of the best ways to create systematic change in U.S. politics in opposition to Israel is to get more U.S. Jews as part of the movement, right? We always hear about how Jews are so disproportionately powerful. It's true. Well, we should want them in the pro-Palestine movement. But there's a lot of things that are prevalent in the pro-Palestine movement that's a massive turnoff for Jewish individuals. And as I told Noam when I spoke to him, for me, the hardest part about being pro-Palestine is the other people who are pro-Palestine, because there's very few in the pro-Palestine movement that I find a true alliance with on more global issues. Yeah, they have the right take here, that violating the rights of another people is unacceptable and we need to fight that. But a lot of it doesn't root from a perspective of universal humanism. It comes from either woke left bullshit or anti-Semitism or just Islamic solidarity. Right? There's a lot of reasons to support Palestine that are not humanist, and all those people are not true. We're not in the same ideological camp. So I do understand Noam's resistance there. Because I feel that resistance as well. It's like, okay, we're kind of allies on Palestine, but when it comes to what the world needs to look like, me and the anti-Semites and the far left and Islamists are not on the same page, right? So it's something interesting. I don't have a solution for it, but that's where Noam's resistance comes from. Now, another thing I'll say, I think that he understands when there's a topic he doesn't know well and doesn't push back hard on that, right? So the areas, when we were talking, the areas where he understood was more my area of knowledge and expertise compared to his, he kind of accepted what I said on it. And it's possible he did the same thing with Fox. I'm just guessing, it's possible. But yeah, I guess we'll see. I'll see how the Eisenberg episode goes. And I'm actually interested because I'm going to read you a message I sent Noam today. I'm going to blank out somebody's name because they're not relevant, but this person is somebody who Noam told me they believe is truly anti-Semitic, and I don't believe this person is anti-Semitic. But I said, also, I will add and say that I think Eisenberg has harmed the Jewish people far more than blame. Eisenberg has very clearly contributed to the Jewish people being less informed on a very important issue. Jews don't know who to trust, so they see him as a potential source of truth, yet he's constantly deceiving them. Anti-Semites wish they could harm us as much as Eisenberg has. And then he said, can I repeat this to him on the record? Which I found fascinating that he would want to do that. And I said, sure. So I guess we'll see what happens.
So one comment, I have watched a ton of Noam's content, unfortunately. And he holds, like, his core belief about this conflict is kind of similar to what we were talking about, which is that the only way for Israel to be safe is for these people to be scared. That's their culture. That's the Middle East. That's the neighborhood, and like the only thing people understand is violence. And if only they have a Gandhi, then everybody in Israel would sign up, and then he would bring up the example of Sadat from the 70s and all that stuff.
I don't think it's a Gandhi. I think the issue is trying to find somebody. Let's say the left wins in Israel. Let's say Yair Golan or something wins. What? Who can they negotiate with even? It's not about having a Gandhi figure. It's having somebody who's good. I don't even know if I would accept. I don't even know if I would accept the.
They can negotiate with the Palestinian Authority, with Mahmoud Abbas, with.
Yeah, I mean the PA.
Mahmoud Abbas solidified his power. That's a good thing. But let me ask you: do you think Mahmoud Abbas would accept, let's say, even the 67 borders?
What do you mean? Wait, hold on. Abbas, like of all the ruling parties between the river and the sea, Hamas, Likud, and the PA is by far the most moderate. Yeah, they're corrupt.
I agree.
Yeah, they're corrupt. They're not the most moderate on domestic issues, but in terms on peace and reconciliation, they've made so many concessions. They're essentially a proxy of Israel at this point. So there's definitely somebody to negotiate with.
With everything else you said.
The PA recognized Israel's right to exist in 1993.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Wait. Israel has yet to recognize Palestine's right to exist. The PA agreed to give 70% of their historic homeland to Israel. That's a massive compromise.
I agree.
Okay,
I agree.
Yeah.
I think Israel should negotiate with Abbas. The problem is it was before Abbas had no power, because people are saying exactly what you said that I disagreed with. The only thing I disagreed with out of what you said in that statement about the PA, that they're puppets of the Israeli government or whatever. What's it called? People, that is a common thought process in the West Bank, in Gaza, definitely in Gaza. But now he's solidified his power. He won the elections. So I don't think that's the case anymore. And I think that Israel should be negotiating with him. I agree on some level in there. Yeah. However, the thing is, I don't know. Okay, so right now, Abbas is the best leader that Palestine has probably ever had, that might care about his own people. I don't know how much he does, but we'll see. He said that Jews are not a fictional European people that have misappropriated the culture, and he understands why Jews came down here. And he said that if he was a Jew, he would do the same thing. These are really big steps for sure. I agree. However, he still has a pay to slave policy. He still has the pay to slave policy. And let's see.
Wait, hold on. I imagine you don't really know much about the pay to slave policy. Do you know that any Palestinian that's harmed by Israel their family gets compensation? It's not just terrorists; it's everybody. It's essentially welfare, and I don't think the policy is good as I think it should be reformed. But it's not that the PA is not saying go commit terror attacks and then we'll pay your family. They're saying if your family loses their primary bread earner, then we need to give you welfare. And why do you think Israel has immense leverage over the PA? Why do you think Israel didn't use their leverage to stop what we call pay for slay? It's because they probably see it as beneficial. Israel has assessed this. I don't think Israel actually believes pay for slay incentivized terrorism. I think they recognize that if the families wouldn't get compensation, you'd have more poverty and then even more extremism. I actually think Israel views it as a generally okay policy, and it's why they've put very little pressure on the PA to change this.
I'd like you to find anybody in the Knesset that agrees with that statement, but
no, they're not going to admit it. Why would they admit that? And another reason, part of at least current leadership.
So all the Knesset are liars?
Politicians and people generally lie about things that are not in their interest to.
All of them? I'm saying
No. Wait. What makes you think all the people in Knesset have zero impact or say or anything to do with pay for slay? we're talking about Israeli leadership. We're talking about assessment done by the Shin Bet, Israeli intelligence. They know this policy exists, and it's existed for decades. And Bibi, who has been in power now for decades, has done nothing to stop this policy. Now, I gave one theory as to why Israel would give a little put little pressure to changes. Another one is, one of the things that Bibi successfully did is he convinced the Israeli population that there's not much of a difference between PA and Hamas, that they're both just these brutal, violent.
Everybody knows it.
After October 7th, more, but in the Israeli public, prior to October 7th, they were both seen as like really, really bad. But there's always been significant differences, and it's possible pointing to pay for slay just helps you demonize them. But if it was such a bad,
that has to be pointed to. I mean, if somebody didn't point to it, it'd be doing a disservice to the conversation.
Okay, but why? So why do you think Israel would not put any incentive?
I mean, listen,
any pressure?
I'm not saying. I mean, your conspiracy there that you said that could be true.
No. This doesn't require a conspiracy, right? It's not like a bunch of. It's not a bunch of people conspiring.
Sure, whatever it is, let's say it's true. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't the PA? I mean, if Abbas is so good-willed, why wouldn't he just end it how it is? I mean, change it, reform it to help out welfare.
They actually are. So now they are.
Not pay this way.
No. So now they.
So then
now they are, but
good.
you know why?
Awesome.
Because it was I think UK and Germany put pressure on them to change it, right? So we saw pressure worked and they changed it. Israel could have done that decades ago. For whatever reason, they didn't. But
I disagree, but sure.
What do you disagree about?
That they could have done it decades ago, but
why? So explain why couldn't they?
There's no point in
wait, no.
On that subject.
No. Wait. Why couldn't they have done it?
Mm-hmm.
Why couldn't they have done it years ago?
I don't know. Why could they have done it? How could they have done it?
The PA cannot exist without Israel. They cannot exist without Israel.
That's not true.
It absolutely is true. If Israel does not,
let me ask you, if why wouldn't the PA just do it by themselves if they knew that it was just a detriment to them having that thing?
Because I don't think they believe it.
With regards to benefiting, with regards to the relationship with Israel, or with regards to the world's perception of them.
Because I think it makes sense for them to have some kind of a welfare program. I think the welfare program needs to be reformed. I don't think they saw it as such a severe detriment to them. But if Israel saw it as such a severe detriment, they could have put immense pressure on the PA to change it. And yes, the PA can. I don't think Israel cares. The PA. Hold on. If Israel tomorrow says, PA, we are not backing you anymore. You do not have our military support. It will only take a few weeks before different resistant groups rise up and take power. That's like not even debatable. It's also why anytime somebody says that why don't Palestinians rise up against the PA, you're essentially saying rise up against Israel. Israel will not let Palestinians rise up against the PA. The PA is their buddy and they protect them. They're interconnected.
It's not their buddy. Why wouldn't they negotiate with them then?
The PA is useful at keeping Palestinians in the West Bank quiet, while them not needing to progress a Palestinian state.
Do you think Abbas doesn't care about the people?
I think he cares about it.
I'm asking the question.
I think he probably cares about his people, but I know he's corrupt, right? It's not he's corrupt.
I agree.
But anyways, I wanna address one comment. This is by HeadOn. HeadOn goes, Adar, it doesn't matter whether or not you're a Zionist, you'll always be a Jew in their eyes, even after 1,000 years from now on. If that was not the case, then why Arabs were killing non-Zionist Jews before the establishment of Israel, 1929 Hebron massacre, Safed and Jerusalem? Okay, well, good question. Now, it's also just a common misconception in like one of the Hasbara talking points. So you definitely have had violence in Ottoman Palestine, but violence against Jews in Ottoman Palestine was actually quite rare. There's a chart that Zionists love to share, but it's a self-defeating chart because it actually proves the point. You had like an instance of every century, one pogrom-like thing, once a century, twice a century. Not justifiable, but this is pretty much in line with how minority groups have been treated all around the world. Historically, throughout history, minority groups are oppressed, attacked, displaced, scapegoated. Jews have survived long enough to have this happen to us many, many times and live to tell the tale. But minorities being attacked is not unique to Jews, and it's not uniquely perpetuated by Arabs. But what we do see is with the Zionist movement, the number of attacks increased by orders of magnitude. The attacks in the hundreds of years prior to Zionism were occasional attacks that minorities face, which are wrong and inexcusable, but they do exist. The attacks that happened after Zionism is pretty consistent anti-colonial violence, which we've seen happen throughout history. The number of attacks increased significantly. Here, let me just pull up the chart. It's just, where did I pull it up? Because I have two streams going. Okay, hold on one second. Give me a moment to do the logistics here. Whatever, I'll just send it to you. I'll send it to you. It's literally a list of all the attacks against Jews. You see from like the 1500s until the late 80s, you have like 5 instances. From the late 80s until 48, you have hundreds. What changed? Well, when you have mass migration of a foreign population claiming land for their own, trying to replace the local population, every single time that's ever happened, the local population resisted. So to point to a few instances of violence against minorities in the hundreds of years leading up to Zionism does not prove your case, it disproves your case. Second, prior to Zionism, Herzl's Zionism, you actually had Jews immigrating from Europe into the Middle East, into Ottoman Palestine, because it was safer for Jews. Life was better for Jews in Ottoman Palestine than it was in Europe. So a lot of what you can claim Arabs have done to us, Europeans have done worse. Did Europeans change their religion? Did they change their genetics? No. They're still Christian, they're still European, but they're not really violent towards us anymore. So clearly what contributes to violence is not one's ethnicity or religion. It's just a greater cultural aspect and environmental conditions that lead to different group dynamics, sometimes leading to violence. So this whole idea that Arabs or Muslims will always hate us is not really grounded in anything but fear-mongering in order to support the continued violence against them. And in fact, 20% of Israel's population are Arabs. They have greater means to harm us than Palestinians by far, right? Well, they are Palestinian. They're Palestinian citizens of Israel. If they wanted to rise up against us and start engaging in mass stabbing attacks, shooting attacks, they could harm us more than any other enemy we have. Yet a tiny percentage of terror attacks against Jews come from those populations. What's the difference between Palestinian citizens of Israel and Palestinians living in the West Bank? Simply their conditions. Palestinians living in Israel, it's not a perfect situation. They're not they have a lot of complaints about the state and that they feel like second-class citizens, and these need to be addressed, but they have many positive interactions with Jews. They're living relatively good lives, so they're not motivated towards violence. Palestinians in the West Bank, same religion, same people, but their interactions with Jews are at checkpoints dealing with soldiers or dealing with settlers. They don't have freedom. They're stripped of their dignity. That is the exact conditions that lead people to violence. It's not religion. It's not genetics. It's conditions. You change the conditions, you change the people.
Actually, Adar, if I can contribute to that point you mentioned about the hate towards Jews or the anti-Semitism vibe, let's say. Historically, you're accurate to mention that compared to Europe, Jews have been relatively safer in Arab or Muslim worlds. I can take you back to Al-Andalus and to the Inquisition, and when Muslims and Jews were ethnically cleansed in a large part, and it was the Ottoman Empire, in fact, that saved a lot of the Muslim minorities at the time, and the Jewish minorities as well, being migrated into North Africa and parts of Anatolia, Istanbul, Constantinople, and modern-day Turkey. So it is sequential or consequential. Let's say that we cannot say that there is a hate towards Jews as such, but it's maybe what you mentioned, driven by certain cultural, situational factors that contribute to there being a sense of enmity or hate. Let's put it. And if I may, you pointed out before, how will the change come? Will it come from within Israel, or will it come from the outside, or the pressure that other governments can? Because I've been hearing that narrative, that discourse, Adar. I believe that it is very difficult that the change will come from within Israel. Obviously, it is not in the interest of certain groups of Israel to have a peaceful solution, let's say, or a peaceful resolution more than peace solution. Right, the solution is very difficult to attain, but it seems that the international pressure is more likely to pay off eventually than a revolution within Israel, because it is true that this hostility that certain areas of Israel are facing by ever more and let's say hateful, not hateful is a strong word, but let's say disliking or disfavoring figure towards Israel, Arab governments, more radical Islamic groups, etc. And I take this opportunity, obviously, to big shout out to big legends like Maxim and House of Betrayers, and obviously the bigger legend Adar himself. Major respect to all of you. Thank you for listening to me, guys.
Thanks for hopping on. Appreciate your thoughts. We have a comment coming in, which, Kareem, this is a personal interest of yours. So you're going to like this next comment. Dominic is saying, Adar, can you explain how the Greater Israel Project isn't a thing? So Greater Israel Project, in the sense of like the map of Greater Israel that people show and the desire for Israel to achieve that's not a thing, right? There's no movement within Israel that's trying to achieve those borders for some religious perspective. But what's true is that Israel is inherently expansionist, right? So Israel, when they are at war, they take these opportunities to take territory, and they are not so inclined to give that territory back unless there's sufficient pressure on them giving it back. So Israel does have expansionist elements, and if they have an opportunity, they will take more land to create more buffer zones or to protect their people. The Israeli population generally view this as a win, so it's politically advantageous for them to act this way. One could also see it as a way for negotiating leverage in the future. But yeah, so Israel's expansionist. They'll take territory and they'll hold it, but it's not like they have some grand vision to have Greater Israel. And it's why they've given back land under the right conditions, like Sinai, for example, like Gaza. So you should, the right mental model, in my opinion, is not Greater Israel, but yes, expansionist elements that need to be addressed. Right? It's why we're still holding some of Syria, Lebanon. We're holding the West Bank. It's very much in Israel's nature to expand and hold territory.
Well, Adar, can I steal your show? Just add a couple of comments on that.
Sure, yeah.
If I may. No, definitely, it is in Israel's expansionist nature, and obviously there is an opportunity for it. And when there is an opportunity, it is wise to take it. It's an ever more segregated, divided territory that surrounds Israel, and even more hostile towards Israel in certain governments or certain factions, let's say. But away from the Greater Israel narrative, which I'm sure that people are bored of me talking about it, and I don't want to talk about it now, is the fact that maybe historically it might have been strategic to withdraw from certain attempts to let's say expand. Attrition, one of them, obviously diplomatic pressure and military force as well. You mentioned Sinai, for example. I reckon you referred to the young 1973 conflict and the Yom Kippur War and all. but there is I believe an attempt to make sure certain factions are subdued or controlled, certain factions that might be more radical or more opposing towards Israel versus other factions that might be more lenient or more diplomatic in a large sense. I think House of Atreus wants to say something about that, right?
Sorry, I'm trying to answer a question in the chat. What did you say?
Okay, no, I thought you wanted to say something because I saw you were on mute, so I figured if I'm being too preachy, just let me know.
No, I'm letting whatever, anybody else want to talk. I'm just answering some stuff in the chat right now.
Yeah, I mean,
so go for it. So Adar, that's what I wanted to say. Yeah, sorry, please.
Okay, yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Do you feel that we've now had a few conversations on Greater Israel that maybe you're closer to my perspective on it, that there's expansionist elements, but not it's not quite this grand conspiracy for just that border, just those borders?
So I have a question, Adar. Do you what
wait, I want to hear Kareem's response and then we'll give it over to you. Do you think your mental model has changed a little bit?
I can understand why a larger majority of certain populations in Israel are not inclined into seeing Greater Israel vision. And I'm partly relieved to find open-minded and broad-minded more than open-minded. I'd like to think people like Maxime, like House of Atreus, who I have very interesting conversations with, obviously you, Adar. It cannot be, I mean, I mentioned it as an end game scenario, like a best case scenario. It's not a short-term goal in a sense.
I mean, you understand the difference, the Narnia situation, right?
Yeah, I know the Narnia, Ardika Israel min al-Furat ila al-Nil, which means your land Israel from the Euphrates to the Nile is very utopian. It's Narnia. I like Narnia. I like how you view it that way. And I understand how you don't see it factual, whereas
listen, like I said, if somebody's trying to say that Israel is trying to take the West Bank, I'll agree. I'm not going to agree with it, but I'll believe it. It's believable. You know, if somebody's trying to say that Israel is trying to take Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and pieces of Iran, that's fictional to me. That's a fictional. Israel couldn't do that if they wanted to.
Yeah, they have no way to hold that territory. They have no way to settle that territory. The IDF has a massive manpower shortage, simply by trying to hold some of Gaza, a little bit of Lebanon, a little bit of Syria and the West Bank. We can barely do that. Where the IDF has major issues.
On their sixth tour.
Yeah.
Sixth tour right now.
Yeah. It's just there's no feasibility to something like that.
It's crazy, yeah.
But look, I do want to, guys. We're going. It's 10 p.m. here, and I haven't had dinner yet, so I do want to wrap this up. Mutual, you've been patient and you haven't said anything, so Mutual, I'm going to give you the floor to share some thoughts. I'll then do like 5 more minutes of rapid fire questions because there's a bunch coming in, and then we'll wrap it up. But I'll be back with another one of these panels in a few days. I'm back to streaming, so we're doing this, guys. Okay. This ain't a one and done.
Very nice. Okay, so apologies if you've been asked this many times, and it feels a little bit silly or simplistic, but I don't know. I think it's interesting. I wanted to ask you. So, the Gaza war, because you were talking about it earlier. Can we? I want to run through it and then see how you would do things differently. So. Would you agree, and I'm not assuming that you would, but just asking, that the war goals are rightly and justifiably to permanently end the threat from Gaza towards Israel and to return the hostages? Is that fair?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And principles of warfare, we can say and agree that the ideal number of innocent casualties is 0. Mm-hmm. Preservation of innocence and non-threats is prioritized except in exceptional circumstances. So, for example, I would say, like, in killing Nasrallah, if the only way to kill Nasrallah is to get 20 innocents with it, I'm okay with that. In other cases, if it's just some random militant, like some random terrorist guy, I wouldn't allow. I wouldn't say you can even kill one innocent or injure one innocent in a serious way. But yeah, is that principle okay to you?
The principle that the principle that we should do everything in our power to reduce civilian harm, but sometimes it's inevitable.
Yeah, you can phrase it like that.
Okay. Yeah,
I think
That's
the
easy.
question was,
yeah.
is Nasrallah's life worth 20 civilians?
No, no. Again, I don't agree with this decapitation method because it's not been proven to actually be effective. So it's only effective at convincing your population that you did something cool. We haven't seen it be effective at actually defeating resistance groups. So we don't have we don't have so we don't have good data to suggest that this is worth killing all these people. But yeah, I'm still with you. Or was that the question?
No. Okay. We're more than halfway there. So and then on the other side of the coin to that, it is fair and justified and reasonable to show maximum merciless violence against the combatants. Of course, with no cruelty or unnecessary excess of violence, especially where it has no strategic justification, and especially where it is just sadism. But still, maximum violence against the enemy.
Okay.
Let me follow up that, Maxime, if I may. Is it justifiable? Is it two sides to the conversation? Can we justify a similar assassination attempt on Bibi, for example, and 10 of his cabinet, if we're justifying the ending of violence?
Wait, guys, we're not turning this into a group discussion just because I really need to wrap it up. Okay, I want to wrap this up, so it's not going to be a group discussion.
Yeah, we're at the last bit, and then
yeah, exactly. But we can continue this in a few days, or we could even, you guys can continue this. I'm just going to end the live stream and continue in a voice channel, no problem.
Yeah, we'll open we'll open another group.
So
I agree with you,
Maxim.
So, are you fully done right now? You've got 2 minutes.
No. I do.
Okay. Hadar, you are the supreme leader of Israel. You have total authority over the entire state, all the military. With the agreed principles that we have just gone over, the war goals and the ethics, what is different about the Gaza war? How do you achieve those war goals, and what does it look like with you operating?
Sure. So there's different ways to go. There's different ways to go about it, but I could even present a few different paths that I would, if I was supreme leader, I wouldn't decide on my own. I would bring the smartest people I know, and we would assess this and analyze it. But one is, and this is the most foreign to the current war mentality, but it's essentially say, you caught us with our pants down. We failed to secure our border. We fucked up. We have no feasible way to bomb our hostages free. We have no feasible way to defeat you through bombings. So we're just going to negotiate to get our hostages back. We're going to learn from our mistakes, secure our border, and not let that happen again. That should be on the table. I know people hate that, but that should be on the table. And I will say, what I'm suggesting now, in a few decades, will be seen as sensible, and how we're currently acting today will be seen as barbaric. At least I believe, based on moral progress we made the past few hundred years. In a few more decades, what I said will be seen as completely normal. The idea that you need to respond to violence with more violence is very flawed and causes immense harm. So that's one. But let's say we see that's not the best solution. Let's talk about military solutions. I wouldn't start a massive aerial bombardments on day one. Why do I want to kill my own hostages? Why do I want to kill all these civilians? I would take my time. I would start evacuating Gaza. I would work with the international community, see if they would help. I'd build a massive refugee camp in the Negev, in Area A, and we would start getting the whole civilian population out of Gaza. It'll take time. But you start moving hundreds of thousands, eventually millions of people out of Gaza. If all that's left in Gaza is overwhelmingly militants, you have a pretty easy job dealing with the situation. And I would even say it probably wouldn't even come to that, because the second you start having these mass evacuations, that is massive pressure on Hamas, equal, maybe more than military pressure, right? Military pressure, it's not even clear what that does to them, because with our military pressure, they get PR gains. Well, we would give them far less PR gains by doing evacuations, but they would literally be losing their protection, losing the civilian population that they roll over, and it would increase the chance that they would make concessions. Another thing we could have done is simply attacked by creating a larger buffer zone. So just moved the populations closest to the border, deeper into Gaza, and created a larger buffer zone. That's essentially us taking more land that maybe in the future we can negotiate to give back, given Hamas do X, Y, Z. If we're going to engage in all-out war again, so you do the evacuations, I would have engaged in a very different level of proportionality, meaning you don't kill 20 civilians for one junior combatant. I wouldn't have stopped aid from coming in. Civilians need aid. I would have had much different laws of engagement in no-go zones, right? I wouldn't shoot women and children on sight. If soldiers were committing war crimes, they would be held accountable. And I would leave civilian infrastructure intact, like medical infrastructure, water infrastructure, cropland. You know, it's not that Israel just, not only does Israel have a right to respond to October 7th, they actually have a moral obligation to protect their people. There's many ways to protect their people, but they do have an obligation to do that. It's not just that Israel responded, it's the way in which they responded was unjustifiable. And the same exact way, Palestinians have a right to resist, but that doesn't mean that October 7th was justified the way they did it, right? And Palestinians will say the same thing, or supporters of Palestine will say the same thing. What would you suggest they do? Well, there's many other means of resistance that Palestinians could have engaged on that would have been as horrific as October 7th. And that's the standard we should try to hold institutions and organizations to. And let me just
I agree with a lot of what you said there.
One more angle. I want to show how Western framing allows us to kill any number of civilians and be okay with it, but when they kill civilians, it's not okay. If let's say Israel makes a calculation that we're going to bomb this building and we're going to kill 20 civilians, but we'll kill one combatant. In attacking Nova Festival, you're by default at a better ratio than that, because if you're attacking a festival, primarily people in their 20s, you know there's a significant number of soldiers and reservists. Majority of them are going to be soldiers and reservists. So engaging Nova, you could see a greater justification for that. You're going to have a better proportionality than if you do.
Come on.
Hold on. I'm simply showing you how we create both sides create rules of engagement where they're allowed to kill civilians while the other aren't. But again, if
at a peace party,
okay, it's at you're killing soldiers, enemy soldiers at a peace party, and we're killing militants in their home with their family. Yeah, both shouldn't be done. But we think one is okay and the other's barbaric. No, both are not okay. But attacking Nova, you're gonna have.
How do you stop soldiers when they're? How do you stop like Hamas soldiers when they're implanted throughout the civilian infrastructure?
You separate the civilians from the militants.
How though? I mean,
without
evacuations.
And how can you separate the civilian population from the military population in Israel?
No. Wait, Kareem. Kareem, hold on.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
His question was about how do you do that in Gaza? In Gaza, you could do that through evacuations. How could Hamas do that? No, they could. So, for example, if they would have only attacked military bases, much more people, like October 7th wouldn't have been nearly as bad if they only attacked military bases. It's just the thought of going into people's homes, like in the kibbutzim, and just massacring full families, going to a music festival where people are dancing, like the imagery of that is just horrific. That's not a necessity. That's a choice. They could have simply gone to military bases, taken soldiers hostage, and returned to Gaza. They would have been in a much better place in the public image if they'd done so. And Israel would have had much less justification for responding with so much force. But again, the point stands that Israel has a right to self-defense. Palestinians have a right to resist. This is a right people do have, but that doesn't mean that everything you do in the name of self-defense and everything you do in the name of resistance is justified.
Sorry, Adar, but we never talk about what led to the October 7th. I mean, it seems that there is no justice narrative being considered in the sense of if we're taking down military combatants, it is inevitable that these military combatants have families and they live within them. It is inevitable there's going to be collateral damage when you try to take Hamas fighters, because these fighters have families. And I personally am bold enough to say that the people who in Palestine who are not aligned into a military armed force as such in a Hamas or any other faction is because they cannot do it. I'm certain that the vast majority of the Palestinian population, if they were given the chance, they would also fight and not only resist but also offense.
Okay,
And,
but wait. What, I don't get the point. Like you said, what happened? Nobody here is saying that October 7th happened in a vacuum. Obviously, something led to it. But I'm not even sure your point. You said it didn't happen in a vacuum, but then you said, but there's no way for Israel to kill Hamas without killing them in their homes. That's not true. It's not true.
It's inevitable. It's inevitable. These people live. I mean, when they bomb mosques or hospitals, I know that there are certain people there that are affiliated in some form to Hamas, and I know for certain.
Wait. How do you know? How do you know?
Because these people live within. It's the only way out they have. These people are dead anyway. I mean, when
no. Kareem, I'm sorry. Kareem, I'm sorry. You can't
they
say.
have no option but to fight back. That's what I'm saying.
Wait.
Wait. The population is hostile. Yeah, please go ahead, Adar, please.
Wait. I'm so confused by what you're saying. You're saying Israel is justified in killing all those civilians because those civilians wanted to fight back?
No, I'm saying that Israel cannot differentiate sometimes between what is a hostile target and what is a civilian family target. I understand that, but that goes both ways. When you have the entire Israeli population has
no. I know, but I'm not even agreeing with your first point. I don't think what Israel's conduct in Gaza is legitimate. You cannot kill full families just to get one junior militant. That's not acceptable.
I'm not saying that it's acceptable, Adar. Of course, I condemn that. I'm not saying that. I'm not justifying the actions of Israel against Hamas or civilian population. Just to clarify that and say that unequivocally. I know what you're saying, and there should be a certain protocol for war, a certain code of conduct, a certain art of war, as some would say, you know. And I concur with what you're saying. It's definitely horrible for one side to do it and for the other side to do it. But we're reaching a scenario that's going to come to a total war situation where any action is going to be justifiable by either party because it goes both ways. I don't think the violence is going to stop. I don't think that people are going to reach some form of agreement and all the people that have been displaced in Palestine or Gaza or West Bank or whatever are going to be feeling, yeah, sure, that's
yeah, no, okay. I want to, look, I did say we're not going to turn this into a group discussion, but because I really want to sign up, just so I understand real quick, Kareem, so do you think Israel's actions in Gaza were okay? Just yes or no?
That's a rhetorical question. Of course you don't want to answer, man.
No, do you think it was okay? That's how confused I am by your position. I swear I have no idea.
I do not.
Okay, cool.
Condone.
Okay, but do you think October 7th and everything that happened, was that okay?
Of course it's not.
Okay.
But I'm just saying it's a consequence of what happened before. Look, man, I'm not up for killing people. It's not right. But when you have other people doing it to you, you can't lie back and put the other cheek. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's inevitably going to escalate. I know you want to sign off, and I'm sorry I brought this
all
up.
Good. We're gonna give it.
If anyone wants to fire back at me like House of Betrays, which I have a little
bit of
respect for. Yeah, honestly, I enjoyed my discussion with you, Kareem.
Thank you.
We can make a new chat whenever Adar is ready to go.
Let's
just open a VC. I just wanted to go back with Mutual real quick. Mutual, did that answer your question?
I actually tuned out for a couple of minutes. I'm really sorry, but I got the gist of all of it.
Okay, cool. Cool. Whoever's here, we're gonna stop the stage for now.
Referring to what you said before.
No. Yeah, my response. What could have been done differently in Gaza?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that was a really comprehensive. The time you had.
Okay, cool.
Limitations. It was really good.
Awesome.
I overwhelmingly agree as well.
Cool. Glad we're on the same page. I like when people from different backgrounds can find some common ground on these issues. Okay, let's see. We have Hulugu says, Adar, this is fucking bullshit that you just spouted. It's so disingenuous and harmful to the Jewish people. You literally justified killing of people in Nova Film Festival? No, I didn't. When did there might be a comprehension issue.
No, I think Adar didn't justify that.
No,
in any way.
I literally, the point I was making was saying that is murderous, just like Israel's actions is murderous. But in the West, we frame it as Israel's actions is okay, but Nova was not okay. What Israel's doing in Gaza is actually worse than Nova because of the scale and just because of the proportion. 3% of those killed on October 7th were children. 30% of those killed in Gaza were children. The scales are just vastly different.
The difference is that one is done with intent to hurt children. The other one is done because.
Okay, wait, hold on. So do you have a single instance of a child being executed on October 7th at close range?
I mean, these were all young people. I mean, it's like, I don't know.
No, child. You're talking about they massacred military age.
Like 10 years old or something.
Wait, so you're saying, let me ask you guys a question. Let's say Israel got intel that there was a big meeting and their intel said that 50% of the people there are either actively in Hamas or reservists. Would it be legitimate to blow that up?
Absolutely not.
But most Israelis would say, of course, killing a full room. Well, okay, exactly. But so that is like justifying.
Is one Israeli life
it's the
worth
same,
more than 10 Palestinian lives? That's kind of
exactly. Those who justify Israel's actions in Gaza, it's similar moral calculation to supporting Nova. So Hulegu here, who's super triggered, is actually had he been born in a different household with the same psychological profile he has, he'd be super supportive of Palestinian resistance. He'd think attacking Nova was heroic. That's just the type. That's just the profile. But no, Kfir Bibas. No. The Bibas children were almost certainly killed in an airstrike. I don't accept that. If you have an autopsy showing that they were strangled and you refuse to show the autopsy to a single third party, not a single human rights organization, not a single third party forensics organization, it's just the claim that nobody saw. Not even Israeli forensics claims that that's what the autopsy said. Only Netanyahu and Daniel Hagari said it. We know Israel was systematically destroying the homes of hostage takers. We know Israel killed over a dozen hostages in their homes. And we know there's very little historical precedent to murdering children. The likelihood that Bibas family were killed in an airstrike is significantly higher than them being killed by bare hands. Is it possible they're strangled? Yeah, but that's not the most likely scenario. So no.
Adar, I propose just to kind of be effective, maybe if you need to sign off or whatever, if you need to wrap up the conversation because it's going to escalate.
I said I'm just doing. There's just a few questions that I wanted to get to, so I'm going to get to a few more. So Nabhil, if you're still here, you asked. There's a French documentary about Palestinian woman named Alice who's facing settlers in the West Bank. It's called Alice au Pays des Colons. My French accent sucks. Is that by chance your friend? Yeah, that's Alice Kissia. That's a friend of mine. There was one more I wanted to do. When a person joins Hamas, they definitely have an intention to kill Jews. No, when a person joins Hamas, they definitely have an intention to kill their oppressor, which just happens to be Jews. Yeah, people want to fight their oppressor. Every human in history had a similar, or every population in history wanted to do that. So much of Zionist narrative is expecting humans to act in inhuman ways and then blaming them for acting human. What the fuck? What are you even doing? Like, we describe a very human reaction as an irrational inhumanity and a justification for why we need to harm those people. Depraved.
Can I ask you a question, Adar, quickly? What do you think that should happen in the West Bank? Do you think they should be evacuated from their homes? And if so, do you think they should be given another home or in Israel? Do you know what the cost of that would be?
Or in Egypt or in Lebanon, because it's more comfortable for the Israeli population, I guess.
It's a great question. I'll answer that on the next stream. So just remind me, okay?
Sure.
Because I don't want to get into now. I'm just going to do one more. So Hulu says, So wait, Hulugu, we're pulling out the whole Hasbara playbook. I love this. So he goes, oh wow, so I can become an oppressor in my native land? Of course you can. What about living in your native land means you can't be an oppressor? These are not in any way mutually exclusive. If right now Native Americans started conquering more land in America and oppressed the white population there, they would be oppressing that white population. They could not hide behind, we're indigenous, we're native. Come on, bro. Upgrade your talking points, you know? Like we don't do that cheap propaganda like this. We're trying to build something different, you know? Deep, thoughtful rhetoric, you know? Not this like low level bullshit. Anyways, and sorry, Hulegu, if I'm being harsh on you, my apologies, but like we have a standard and you're just not reaching it right now. But you know what? I don't want to demonize you too much. Like you're still a member of this community. We haven't actually spoken, so welcome to the community. I don't want you to feel like you're not a member. You're definitely welcome to stick around and engage and keep asking these questions and keep doing these challenges. Keep challenging ideas you don't believe in. But just the quality of these remarks, I'm struggling with, but all good. I imagine we're gonna find more opportunities to engage. Okay. Yeah. What's that, Mutual?
I don't think Hulugu is in the voice chat. He's just in the text, so you didn't have.
Oh, but so how do you know what it said? Whatever. Wait, there's no.
Maybe he just left.
Oh, he just left. Okay. Anyways, I'm going to sign off. Those watching on the live stream, if you want to continue the conversation on Discord, you could join us. You could join us. Yeah, what's that about, huh? I'm going to drop a link here. Join the conversation. Will continue
after. Yeah, Hulugu, if you want to join the post discussion chat, you're welcome to discuss.
Yeah,
it's gonna be fire, man. I look forward to talking to House of Atreus, especially.
So those watching on stream, we'll probably do another stream in a few days. So stay tuned for that, and much love.